pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and justice for all.
It always sounds better with a big crowd here. So thank you. We'll start with new business this evening, and the first item on our agenda is to administer the oath of office to the newly appointed city councilor, Doug Sear. I'll turn it over to the city clerk.
Stand up now. And please read everything in italics here for me.
I do swear that I will support the Constitution of the United States and of the state of Maine, so long as I shall continue to be a citizen thereof, so help me God. I do swear that I will faithfully discharge all of the duties incumbent upon me as city councilor for the city of Presque, according to the Constitution and laws of the state of Maine, so help me God.
Thank you.
Welcome to the jury. And the second item of new business is the essential air service proposals. This is some more chairs? Okay.
Hey, Rick.
We are really glad for the turnout tonight. We look forward to hearing from all of you and all the different points of view. I think what makes the most sense is to start with and hear from the Airport Advisory Committee that has spent some time in length going over these proposals. We always look to these committees in parts of the city that are dealing with these things in those specific departments. So we'll hear from the Airport Advisory Committee and also from the department head of the airport, Scott Wardwell, and then start with citizen comment. Is there a representative from the Airport Committee that would like to speak first?
Madam Chairman, councilors, my name is Charlie Namer, and I am chairman of the Airport Advisory Committee. To give you a quick background, I'm 30 years an airline captain. I started here at Bar Harbor Airlines right at this airport. Worked for them for 10 years until we were bought by Continental Airlines. Continued with them for the next 20 years till my retirement in 2002. 10 years after my retirement, Continental Airlines and United merged, and so nobody thinks I have an agenda or I'm hiding anything. I'm a retired United pilot. I don't have any agenda. I'm not trying to blindside you with who I am or what I represent. What I'd like to do tonight is simply list the most important topics we went over and why we decided the way we did. First of all was the aircraft. We had a choice between a 30-seat turboprop or a 50-seat jet. It seemed to us that faster, quieter, and higher above the weather was an option that we liked. We then looked at the airport. We had a choice between Logan or Newark International. Logan Airport, although a large airport, is not what you would call a real hub. It has about 117 nonstop destinations. United, on the other hand, has 170 nonstop destinations out of Newark by itself. It also serves 348 total destinations worldwide in 60 countries. When you're looking at airfare, you have to look at code share as the #1 issue in getting you good connections in airfare. Penn Air has one code share, and that's with Alaska Airlines. And you might say, with 348 destinations, does United even need one? Well, they do have the Star Alliance, and they have code shares with Air Canada, Lufthansa, SAS, Air Portugal, Swiss Air, Air China, India, Air New Zealand, South Africa, and 15 more. We then looked at connectivity, getting in and out of Presque Isle. One of the things that is a problem here is the late departure every day, 8 o'clock, and an early arrival back in from Boston. That means you have a hard time making connections with flights and getting back, especially if you're traveling from a Western time zone or from the West Coast. On the other hand, United Airlines is proposing an early, very early departure and a late evening arrival as well as middle of the day flight, which will give you much better connections. Currently, Pen Air serves Boston and is in Terminal B, which right now is great. Terminal B is inside the Terminal Security Area, or TSA, for both American Airlines and United Airlines. Unfortunately, because of the changes that are being made at Boston Logan Airport, Massport is requiring all turboprop aircrafts to move to Terminal E. Additionally, at Terminal E, Pen Air informed us that because of the lack of space, they will have to bus passengers in from the airplanes, which will be remote parked. This is just going to add a tremendous amount of time to your connectivity at Boston. On the other hand, United Airlines, all international and domestic flights operate inside one TSA secure area. Once you get to Boston with the current Pen Air arrangement, you will have to go outside of TSA to connect with American, Delta, United, or Southwest, the four major players at Boston Logan Airport. Again, with United, you never leave the TSA secure area. The economic impact to the community Pen Air has brought up, and I firmly agree with them. They have over $240,000 in salaries. They have $340,000 in landing fees, $62,000 in hangar rentals, and approximately $50,000 in advertising and trade. However, the airline, or the committee, looked at the fact that every airline needs these services and will pay these fees. Those of you that may have seen the Star Herald in the last week probably saw a quote from Melissa Roberts, Pen Air representative out of Alaska. Her comment was that the Saab 340 is better suited, to serve the Presque Isle Airport than a larger jet because of the relatively short runways at Presque Isle. Fact of the matter is, Presque Isle has the second longest runway in the state of Maine, longer than Portland, and for that matter, longer than New York's LaGuardia Airport. And most of you don't have gray hair, though I see a few of you with it. If you're old enough, you remember that years ago, Delta used to bring 727s and DC-9s in here. So a regional jet really is not an issue. When we talk about the economical viability of a company, while many companies go through Chapter 11 and emerge unscathed, Pen Air is currently in Chapter 11, and the outcome, of course, is always in the air. On the other hand, United Airlines is quite financially solvent. The last year they reported $37.5 billion in revenue and $7.1 billion in profit. We also looked at the other issues and looked at the other airlines that were applying. Plattsburgh dropped Pen Air and opted for SkyWest United code share. And then we looked at it and realized the reason for that is that in reality, the future of airline service is jet service, and that's what we'd like for this airport. There are a couple of things that are pretty much a wash, or maybe even in Pen Air's favor. The nonstop service to Boston that arrives at 9:35 in the morning. If you took United, you'd have to go to Newark, backtrack to Boston, but you'd only arrive about 30 minutes later. Additionally, I know it's a real concern to many people, especially talking with Doug, medical passengers that have to go on to Boston for treatment. We looked at that and then realized, well, Bangor doesn't have any service to Boston, neither does Portland, yet both of them have Newark nonstop service. It must be working for them. There are a couple of things that will have to be modified at the airport, and we took that into consideration. The TSA seating area only holds 32. We would have to expand that to a minimum of 50. That is a cost, but a minor cost. The hangar space is not adequate for an EMB 145. The Saab 340 currently fits in there. However, when the hangar was originally designed, the original architectural plans provided for what we call a little doghouse or a nose projection for that airplane to go into. And the additional funding for that will come from increased rents to the users of the airport. We looked at the subsidy. The total subsidy that Pen Air requested is $13.3 million for the 2 years. That is the second highest subsidy requested. The subsidy that United Airlines requested was $9.6 million, the lowest subsidy. And finally, one of the things that is of real concern to the Airport Advisory Board is the total employments here in Presque Isle. If we do not maintain a minimum of 10,000 employments a year, we lose $1 million of FAA subsidy funds to run this airport, something that would be devastating to this community. In the 6+ years, or 5.5 years, almost 6 years, excuse me, that Pen Air has been here, they have never been able to achieve the boarding totals that Culligan had back in 2011. So our bottom line is, Orlando's our #1 destination. United has 10 nonstop flights to Orlando daily and 18 additional one-stop flights out of Newark. New York's our second largest destination. When you're in Newark, you're a subway ride away from Midtown Manhattan. Washington, D.C. is our third largest destination. United has 8 daily nonstop flights to Washington National and 6 daily nonstop flights to Washington Dulles. The bottom line is, when we voted, United Airlines was our #1 choice, and Pen Air was not even our second. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Would ask this time if Scott Wardwell would like to address the council.
Scott Wardwell, Airport Director. I just wanted to take a step back a little bit and first thank Charlie for that point-by-point analysis. There was actually a total of 6 bids, Pen Air and United being 2 of those. The United bid is a 50-seat regional jet, nonstop service to Newark, with 2 arrivals per day and 2 departures per day, Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday, 1 departure, 1 arrival each day. Now, some people may be a bit concerned with that frequency. In the Essential Air Service program, if you get regional jets, that's the frequency you get. They will not pay for any more frequency. Incidentally, Presque Isle is the only EAS airport that I know of in the program that has Saab 340s that has 3 flights a day. And the reason for that is due to the weight constraints of the Saab 340 that were imposed by the FAA after the airframe was designed. So you can't get 34 people on that airplane and fly in bad weather from Presque Isle, Maine to Boston and meet all of your alternate requirements. So therefore, with just 2 flights, you can't get the 65 minimum seats guaranteed to Presque Isle. But in addition to United and Pen Air, SkyWest Airlines offered nonstop service to Washington Dulles with a 50-seat regional jet. Again, 12 flights a week is what they offered. Silver Airways offered nonstop service to Boston Logan on the same aircraft type used by Pen Air. Sky Value with nonstop service to Boston Logan on a 50-seat regional jet. Now, Sky Value, the 50-seat regional jet is there if that's what you're looking for. The downside to Sky Value is there's no code shares, there's no interline agreements. Essentially, you arrive in Boston and you're on your own. You pick your bags up and you take them to the next stop. Boutique had nonstop service to Boston Logan on an 8-seat single-engine turboprop, and that would have been 40 flights per week. That one we definitely couldn't have recommended, because if we had recommended that one, the airport would have forever forfeited our right to require a twin engine as part of our EAS program. So there were 6 overall bids. We're very pleased with that number of bids. Shows that our air service development work has borne some fruit. Next, really the airport advisory board's role in this process is to, on a very technical basis, make recommendations to the Presque City Council. It was originally formed with the idea that there needed to be a committee that met on a regular basis that could really dig into the details. Their recommendation goes to you, and then you either decide to follow that recommendation or come up with your own. It will be your recommendation, however, that will be the official one on record at USDOT. You are the elected officials of the community that the EAS goes to, and you represent the community. Once they have your recommendation, it is one of 5 criteria that they look at, and then it really is the U.S. Department of Transportation that makes the final decision and makes the final award. Okay? You are simply providing a recommendation here today. As Charlie alluded to, we looked at a whole lot of different factors and weighed all of the various bids against that. But in the background, what we are looking to do is to grow the airport. Okay? Passenger boardings is the most significant operation parameter that there is for an airport. Federal funding is determined based on that, as Charlie alluded to. Revenues to the airport. We did a study one time. Every additional boarding represents $16 to the bottom line. Typically, what drives boardings? What makes a person pick one airport over another airport? Industry-wide, there's the big 3: schedule, equipment, and airfare. Okay? We are not just beginning this process. This process really began in 2005. And through extensive market research, surveys with businesses this side of the border, on the Canadian side of the border, those turned out to be the top 3. Okay? And I can tell you what the top one is. And if you've lived in Aroostook County your entire life, you know what it is too, and that's airfare. Okay? So when the committee looked at things, they really looked at those 3 key areas. Which proposal did they feel best hit all 3 of those? Equipment, obviously a 50-seat regional jet is preferred over a turboprop. We look at the business comments through these surveys. We'd like to see a regional jet. some corporations, essentially, they won't even send some people on a turboprop. Now, a regional jet with the other two things doesn't make great service. You have to have the schedule, and you have to have the pricing. Key thing with scheduling is the 6 a.m. departure and the late evening arrival. Okay? The other thing key to scheduling here is those nonstop connections that you're going to get in a Newark versus Boston Logan. Sure enough, Newark does not have the on-time performance nor the cancellation rate that Boston Logan does. Okay? Boston Logan is a better performer on those two metrics, where the mitigating factors associated with that is all of those options and also our schedule. We believe that the early morning flight and the late evening flight will probably not experience significant delays. Okay, the noon one will be a little iffy. But in the case, if you're going to Orlando and you leave on the 6 a.m. flight and you get delayed and you miss that first connection, so to speak, there's 8 more. Okay? Some people don't like the late night arrival. That late night arrival allows a business person or even a tourist to spend a complete day doing business or completing their vacation and still get to Newark in time to get back up to Presque Isle. As far as pricing is very difficult to get your hand around. My first 3 years here at the airport, I was told by the incumbent airline at that time that pricing was competitive with Bangor. Once I really figured out how to research it and that kind of thing, I realized it really wasn't. And that was a big reason why people were choosing Bangor, Portland, and even Boston over Presque Isle. The advantage that we have with United's proposal on pricing is that essentially it's all done by one entity. Okay? Now, the flight from Presque Isle to Newark will not be a mainline United 737. It will most likely be an express jet or a commute air regional 50-seat. But it will be done under a pay for departure type of agreement, which means the regional carrier doesn't care how many people are on there. They're going to get paid the same for that departure. Okay? United cares. They get all the revenue. They set the pricing, the whole 9 yards. Okay? So it's like one-stop shopping, and there's not too many people with the hand in the till, so to speak. You know, it's like cutting out the middleman, so to speak. This is the type of arrangement that your Portlands, your Bangors, your Burlingtons, they all operate under those types of arrangements. And so we believe we have the greatest chance towards fair parity with Bangor, at least the United service there, that is available with any of these proposals. And one more anecdotal, okay? When Colgan was still here, and once I figured out we really had a significant issue with pricing, I had a chance to meet with U.S. Airways in Phoenix. And I said, look, Saab is great aircraft. Saab is not as expensive to operate as the 50-seat RJs, okay? You're only flying to Boston versus flying from Bangor to Philadelphia. Doesn't it make sense that You should be able to give fair parity to the Presque customers as to your customers out of Bangor. The answer was quick and it was clear, and the answer was no. And here is the reason why, is because as long as you go to Boston Logan versus our Philadelphia hub, you will never get price parity with Bangor, okay? Because essentially we can get better pricing if you're going directly to our hub. And I said, fine, let's talk regional jet service to Philadelphia, to which they kind of grinned and they said, that's really not in the cards today, Mr. Wardwell. So, so we believe that the United proposal gives us the best chance to reach those pricing goals. Also, as Charlie alluded to, there were several other factors that we looked at. We did look at the effect that things would have on our Boston customers. We felt one thing that we brought to the table is with the better schedule, longer operating day at Presque, that at least they would be getting into Boston nearly at the same time. And with that, I would open up to any questions that you might have of me, and if you have none, I'll sit down.
Anyone have any questions for?
I got a couple. Scott, how much are the upgrades to the terminal and the hangar going to cost if we do go to a 50-seat jet?
Essentially,
and who will pay for them too?
The terminal upgrade is relatively minimal. I mean, there's 32 seats in there now. We have a closet that we can remove that allows us to move TSA over, and we have a wall that is just a partition wall that we can push back some as well. I don't anticipate it being a large expense, and probably will just get absorbed in the overall capital improvement budget.
So no increase to the taxpayers, or is that something
No.
you're going to ask us for?
No. Because really for the last couple of years we haven't been going to the taxpayer anyway.
Yeah.
You know, we've done it out of revenue. The hangar is a very minimal addition to accommodate the nose of the aircraft. It was planned for as part of the when we constructed it. And so the beams are in the correct spot and that kind of thing. We actually saved about 10 grand that was left over from the initial project to at least get us started on that. I would anticipate that would be no more than $50,000, and the bids, the folks that bid regional jets, when they were provided the hangar rental fees, their rent actually was increased to account for the additional square footage.
Any other questions?
The additional square footage to do the renovation, or just as if it was already there as the hangar rent?
Essentially what it is whatever the square footage rate was for the original hangar. By increasing the square footage, we just took the same rate, but more square footage.
So the increased price.
So the increase is essentially covering the expansion, is that what you're, okay.
Right. Obviously, you're not going to make back the cost of the thing in 1 year.
Right.
Okay,
Thanks, Scott.
thank you.
One additional statement I would like to make as well. I did reach out to both Angel Flight and to PALS and also United. I think with Angel Flight and PALS, more than the having access to a free flight, I think for them the central issue is having nonstop to Boston. That's how I kind of read things.
Thanks, Scott. I think, you know, that gives us an overview from the committee, giving us what they had recommended, and then hearing from the airport advisory. Obviously, there's a lot of people in the room tonight. Wondering if just by show of hands, I could see like how many people are planning on coming to the podium. Pretty much everyone in the room.
About 20, probably.
I think we could easily say it's fair to limit comments to about a 3-minute range. Should give people a fair amount of time to speak. I also think that it's fair for us to say that we want to hear from the residents and citizens of Presque to start with. So I'll, do we have a clock or somebody keep time? Or I can on here, but say 3 minutes. If when you come to the podium to speak, if you would clearly state your name and your address and your town residence, and then we'll hear from Presque residents first. Of course, if somebody hears something later and they want to speak, then by all means, but then we'll move on from there to airport representatives or other people that have concerns from the region, because obviously it affects all of us.
Want to start in the front row?
Am I the
I can do
club? You are it? Good job, Craig. You were good for something. Who would like to come first? Nobody wants to go first. Yes. I didn't see anyone else jumping up, so let's just go like that then. Appreciate it.
Hi, my name is Janine Murchison. I'm a resident of Caribou, but I like to consider myself a frequent flyer of your airport. In the last 4 years, I've flown in and out of there probably over 30 times. I fly for work. I do have a couple of questions I'd like to begin with, just to set some of my comments up. Are the United planes from Presque Isle large enough to put your carry-on luggage inside the overhead compartments, or will the luggage need to be checked at the gate similar to Pen Air? I don't know where Scott is.
Most of the RJ jets have some overhead storage, but it's usually not large enough for a full roll-on bag, so you would check it at the plane side, and then it would come back to you in the jetway as I would, from all the RJ that I've flown on. You'd get it, you'd stand to the side, and they'd bring it.
So it's similar to Pen Air?
Similar to Pen Air.
But except they bring it on the bridge. The reason I bring that up is it's time. We're talking about time.
Yeah.
Pen Air currently requires a check-in at least 1 hour before the flight. What is the recommended arrival time for United? Will it be 1 hour or 2 hours before the flight?
Most domestic flights, and from my experience, are 1 hour, and international flights are 2 hours. So going to Newark would be a domestic flight, would be 1 hour.
Okay.
And Scott, correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going off.
It tends to be airport dependent. They're not going to pump it out to 2 hours.
Okay. No, just curious. Thank you. Will the gate at New Jersey be shared like Pen Air is currently doing at Boston? For example, gate B36 is shared with another American airline flight. So the last couple of times I've flown, there's been another airplane at the gate, so we have to wait. So it's either a wait to delay or a wait to come in. So I was just curious if it's going to be a dedicated gate for the plane. Because again, we're talking about time.
One second, Scott, for ease of everything, why don't you come up and sit up front here, because there are going to be a lot of questions directed to you. I think it'll be a lot easier to do that, if you don't mind.
Sorry, Scott.
The answer to that is essentially no hub is going to have a gate that is not shared by other aircraft. It's the timing of it, okay? The job of the airline and/or the airport is to make sure that you keep things moving so that when you have an airplane coming off the gate before somebody needs to get in there.
Scott just took up your whole 3 minutes. No,
I know.
it's not going to be a dedicated flight.
Okay. I guess the long and short of it is I went back and forth about United and Pen Air, and I'm thinking I really like Pen Air's flight schedule. It's convenient. Getting at the airport at 7 a.m. is not an inconvenience. Getting at the airport at 5 a.m. and then I got to travel from Presque, so I'm leaving my house at 4:30 a.m. So I'm getting up at 3:30 a.m. to shower and pack and finish everything. That's an inconvenience. Getting back to through Pen Air, getting back, making the 6 o'clock flight, 6 p.m. flight, and getting back here at 8 or 7:30 is tolerable. Getting back at midnight is a huge inconvenience, not just for me, but for the people who have to cart me back and forth too. And I'm sure I'm not the only one who thinks that. I would encourage the city to try to negotiate additional times, flight times, and/or I know. Oh, there you go. They said minimum of 2. I don't know if they would consider other flights or other flights even to Boston. Should I have to go to Boston? I agree that you can get to Boston from Presque through United. After arriving at 8:05 in the New Jersey terminal at Terminal C, you must wait to get off the plane, etc. Takes time. Got to wait for your luggage on the jet bridge. Takes time. The next flight to Boston leaves Terminal C at 8:55, which means the flight begins boarding at 8:25. So you're really getting short on time. Terminal C has 60 gates. What are the chances that the planes you need are near each other? I find that doesn't happen very often. Going to Boston is going to double the planes. You're going to take 2. It's going to double your airtime. It's going to take 3 hours instead of an hour and a half, and it's going to almost double your cost because you've got to pay for the flight to Newark and then the flight to Boston, which, according to Quickie Orbit's check this morning, is about $222 if we did all that. So just FYI. Because I know there are people that do go to Boston as their destination. My other comment, let me see. Based on the Pen Air proposal, I read through this one, and I don't claim to know any of these inside and out, but I know they stated that the landing fee is nearly doubling, the hangar lease is increasing by 50%, air rescue and firefighting fee is increasing. Is United aware of these increases, and do their costs and flight fees that you have been provided reflect that?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Good job, Scott.
That's just over 5 minutes, and because of
Okay.
the, it's
Nope,
the
I'm
thing,
good.
so
I'm good.
if you could, yeah.
So you're pro-Boston. I'm trying to keep a...
Pros and cons.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Well, I wasn't planning to speak, but anybody who knows me knows I can't keep my mouth shut for long, so.
If you want to tell your name.
Oh, I was getting there. I'm getting there, Emily. Time me, though. I'm Ellen Bemis, and I'm a local Presque resident. I fly Pen Air frequently, probably more frequently than I'd like to. I was just there Friday morning and was very pleased to turn around, have my meetings, and come back to Presque the next day. All on-time flights, I might mention. And having to get to the airport an hour early in Presque is quite a bit of time. In fact, I was fortunate enough to maybe get there less than 30 minutes before my flight went out, and they were kind enough to let me on the flight. I live 5 minutes from the airport, so the convenience is just more than I could ever ask for. So I really do appreciate and am happy to pay my taxes to have the airport right in Presque Isle. I've been flying Pen Air since it came in 5 years ago, and we went through some major growing pains. Any of us who flew it regularly know that the switch from US Air to Pen Air was extremely difficult, especially as it related to luggage and making connections. But over those 5 years, you learn, and we learned how to work the system and how to get around, and Pen Air was able to work with some other code sharing and interline agreements that certainly helped us. So I appreciate everything that they did for us in responding to our complaints early on. So flying to Boston, of course, convenient for us and probably everybody else here. Some of the things, I did have an opportunity to review all 6 of the proposals over the weekend, and some of the things that weren't mentioned that I just want to put out there is that United, although I did like their proposal, I completely agree and would love to fly on a jet versus a turboprop. It scares me to death. I hate flying, and I hold on for dear life the whole way. So the jet is certainly a draw, but they're also more expensive. And if you look over, yes, it came in overall less expensive, but they're for less flights a week. So if you compare the actual subsidy per flight on an annual basis, the United flights run almost exactly $1,000 more per flight than the Pen Air flight. So the government taxpayers are getting actually more for their money on the Pen Air flights than the United flights. Of course, it doesn't impact any of us, but it is something to note. The other part that would impact all of us is the average fare per flight. United is stated in their proposal that the average fare would be about approximately $143, and Pen Air's average fare, one-way, is $117. So when you calculate the difference and assume it's a round-trip trip, it's approximately a little over $50 per. This is my time, Craig, not yours.
Oh, he's keeping time.
I'm keeping time, yeah.
Am I done?
Yeah, you're just at 3 minutes, but you started
Okay.
slow, so.
No, that's the only other thing I wanted to mention was the marketing costs. I didn't see I didn't see United mention any marketing costs in their 2-page proposal, although Pen Air does spend committed to $25,000. I don't have a burning need one way or the other, Presque Isle or Newark, but I did want to mention the differences that didn't sort of get pointed out. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you.
Thanks, Al.
I saw a lot of hands, so.
My name is Joel Jondo. I'm an outreach ambassador for Patient Airlift Services. Our major concern about all of this here is for, like, we deal with sick people. Somebody with stage 4 cancer got to get up just to say the middle of the night to take a plane and fly to Newark, New Jersey, and by the make the connections, I mean, stage 4 cancer, you're not feeling well. And with Pen Air, you leave Presque Isle here at a reasonable time. You fly to Boston, and in Boston, we take care of the taxi, so you don't have to worry about nothing. And the other way is just impossible for them, you know, to do it in a reasonable amount of time. They'd lose a lot of time. So this is for Pen Air. That's what I come to talk to you about. And the reason for it is the patients that we provide the service for. And we would hope that things would come out better, so we could continue the way we are. We have a lot of private planes, not a lot, but we have private planes that handle it. But like weather conditions and say a patient got to have restroom facilities and different reasons, you know, I mean, I can't even begin to mention all of them. And just overflow, and sometimes we don't have a plane ready for somebody that's got to go down for an appointment and get on Pen Air. And I had to go to Boston a couple of years ago for surgery for prostate, and I pulled into Frenchville. They had a tornado or a hurricane or something down below, so they sent me to Presque Isle here to get down on Pen Air. Never lost it. So everything worked out for the best. I thank you guys for hearing me, and we'll just hope for the best. Thank you very much.
I got a question for you real quick.
Okay.
Does PALS only work with Boston, or is it
No.
a national thing that works with hospitals all over?
We partner with other airlines, like Southwest.
Mhm.
If somebody goes, they get off in Boston, they get on Southwest and continue on. You know, Memphis, St. Jude's there, wherever you want to go, or wherever you have to go. We've had some flights from Ohio, and this is all free for the patient.
So
Strictly,
would it be possible though? Like, we're all used to going to Boston because that's what we've always had. if things change, I mean, there's also great medical care in New York as well. Will PALS be able to do medical care in New York?
I know they have hospitals elsewhere. They get good hospitals in Maryland, but the hospitals that service us, like Dana-Farber,
Yep.
I don't know exactly what the situation is, but in Presque, where I was taking my treatment, they'd always send it to Dana-Farber so the hospitals are all interconnected, and for them to start, let's say somebody that's really sick, if they have to go somewhere else, they'll probably opt out of treatment because they don't want to go, you know.
Yep.
So this here works best for people that are sick. That's what I'm talking for.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Is it all set?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Troy Haney from Caribou, frequent flyer of Pen Air to Boston. Probably travel somewhere in the neighborhood of 35 to 40 weeks a year, so back and forth. Use it on a regular basis. So first of all, I'll say I travel the West Coast, so the air times that United is offering is probably more beneficial to me to be able to catch those West Coast flights in and out. But I have to set my personal side apart here for this. I just, you know, when I look at, and when I heard about this proposal and the hours, I started thinking about the elderly from the north, you know, up Fort Kent, Madawaska, that have an hour and a half drive to get to the airport. The folks that like to go catch a baseball game, you know, down to the Red Sox. Now you got to go see the Yankees, maybe. I don't know, Emily, you're a
That's not happening.
maybe if the Red Sox are at the Yankees, but
I know how to change flights in Newark.
yeah.
If
But
I have to.
you know, so if you look at the overall scheme of things, and certainly I respect all the job that everybody does on the advisory board, and certainly don't claim to have the information that they do, but just from an outside standpoint, looking at limiting it to 2 flights a day to get in and out versus 3 probably doesn't offer as many options. It probably doesn't offer as many getaways for the sporting events that people probably enjoy here in New England. And also, like I said, the elderly and obviously they mentioned the folks that have illnesses. So just something to consider, you know, to keep that. The other aspect is, I would ask, you know, maybe Scott, you know this answer. Are they going to employ the local people that are currently employed here that are working on Pen Air? I know that I've spoke to quite a few of the folks that are on there that don't anticipate wanting to work or have the job to go back and forth to New York in those hours. So there's an impact here locally from that as well.
I think basically to answer that, any airline that comes in here has to hire a certain number of people. The smaller number of flights may reduce that number, and as far as whether you know, the change in schedule, 6 a.m. is basically what this airport lived on. We never really had a 7 or 8 o'clock flight until relatively recently.
In 2014, didn't we request Pen Air to bid an alternate? I think it was an extra $500,000 to get that 6 a.m. flight because it was important.
We did in fact do that,
and I think the FFA turned it down, right, because of the extra price.
And I think that probably has to do with the hours for the pilots, right? I think if I understand, they have to do more things. Now,
and also the fact that Pen Air moved the pilot base. There used to be a pilot base in Presque, and moved back to Boston Logan.
okay, and the last question I have, I heard that potentially the pilots that fly in at midnight would just be held up at the airport until 6 a.m. the next morning without a place to rest. Is that a fact, or is that just fiction?
I mean, essentially, a pilot has a certain length of duty time. I mean, airlines fly 24/7, and what that allowed, that is possible, or they could bring 2 crews in.
So just from a wear and tear on the pilot safety standpoint, that's the only concern. So thank you.
Hey, thanks a lot.
Thank you, Troy.
Hi, I'm Alice Shepard, 136 Canterbury Street, Presque Isle. I want to speak in terms of the handicapped going to Boston. My husband was diagnosed with cancer just a year ago, and this year we took 6 trips to Boston on Pen Air, and it was wonderful service. There was very close cooperation between oral surgeons here in Presque Isle and the Boston. They work together all the time. I can tell you right now, if there's 25 minutes between planes in Newark, there's no way that one could hail a wheelchair and get to the next gate and be ready in 25 minutes. Even in Boston, it takes a while to get a wheelchair, and it doesn't matter what airline you're on. That's simply the facts of life. And I also have a question about the only 30 minutes extra flying time. I looked at the United schedule, and the average was about an hour and 15 minutes to go from Boston to Newark, and amazingly it was about the same going from Newark back to Boston, which to me it would sound as if the flying time would be tripled rather than just an extra 30 minutes. So I would like a clarification about that.
Well, what they said was that you would arrive 30 minutes later. Okay, also you're leaving 2 hours earlier, correct?
Yeah, you're leaving at 6
So-
instead of 8.
So the comment that was made was that if you left Presque Isle on a morning flight and you made a connection and you got back, what time the 8 o'clock flight arrives in Boston, you would actually arrive 30 minutes later. Where they didn't say in that statement was that you're leaving at 6 a.m.
Right. Okay, I misunderstood that, but then it means that your travel time is about a total of 3 hours and 45 minutes rather than 75 minutes.
About 2 hours and 20 minutes longer.
And if you're not in good health, that is quite an ordeal. Thank you.
Appreciate your comments, Alex. Thank you. I know there's more.
Hello, Madam Chairwoman, City Council. My name is Edward Escobar. My residence is 75 Johnson Road in Presque Isle, Maine. I come up here from a couple of points of views. I've got 16 years, fortunately, coming up here of being a crew member and doing these routes. It's more than just being a crew member, but I'm part of this community and I'm a very concerned citizen. Our passengers are our clients. They're not, it's a very personal situation, and many of you have flown with me, you know that. The other factor is that we can help enhance the people's experience traveling from Presque Isle and back and forth, and the people that come up here to visit Aroostook County. It's very important. And then the people up here in this county, they genuinely need and deserve the opportunity to have flights and service to Boston. I know it was knocked about Terminal E a little bit, but at least on a positive side, Terminal E is connected to Terminal C where you don't have to leave security. Another factor that I see is we want service to continue. Pen Air has established themselves. They left Alaska and came 5,000 miles across the country, and they've become entrenched themselves in the community. We don't know that somebody else coming in here, they have an issue getting in here in wintertime and they're just not going to be happy and they're going to leave us, whereas we'll be giving up consistent service and someone that wants to be here in the long run. Medical needs. It was mentioned here a few minutes ago about the medical needs for people in Bangor and Portland. Doesn't seem to be an important destination to get them to Boston. Well, they're south of us. It's a whole different reality here. Sometimes you can get treatment in Bangor or in Portland or go from Bangor to Portland. Up here, that's not the case. These people need, and it's a matter of life and death for them to get to Boston, to get the service that they really, really need and they deserve. Having, flying into Newark, right now, you can enjoy time in Boston. You can go down for the day, shopping, experience an overnight, a concert, a game, enjoy the beautiful city of Boston. You're safe. I've flown in and out of Newark, and you don't want to step outside that airport, and that's the truth. And it's also not so easy getting on a subway and going into New York City or having to go to another part of New York. It's not that easy. It gets complicated, and it takes time. Times are an issue for our public here coming in at midnight, and how the crews are going to be able, if there's delays in the morning, to be able to operate these flights out.
Close.
Is my time? Okay. Well, I had a lot more, but I appreciate what you gave me. Thank you.
And-
We'll have
Well,
second opportunity.
Yeah, if we need to come back. And I want to make sure that everyone here that wants to be heard gets a chance to. Some really good points. You know, in all due respect, we laugh about the fact that Newark is kind of an armpit, but the fact is, New York City and Times Square is safer than the Portland Old Port. And I think, you know, that's something as Mainers we need to look at. But New York City and Times Square has really cleaned its act up. And I don't know how many have been there in the last year, but it's a great destination too. And I'm not speaking as a proponent of anything here other than, you know, I don't want to run down other parts of the country either. I love Boston and I love to spend the afternoon there, but you know, we gotta think outside the box too. And we are all creatures of habit. And I'm as guilty as the next guy, so, okay.
I'm not going to take a whole 3 minutes, but I just wanted to share that I'm concerned about the patients.
Can you state your name and address?
I'm sorry. My name is Barbara Roy, and I'm from St. David, Maine. And I flew with PALS and Penair for 4 years with my husband. He was having treatments in Philadelphia. And my situation might be a little different because I didn't have to go to Boston. But I know that most of the patients do have to go to Boston, and it would create an undue stress, and it would be hard for them to have to switch from Newark or anywhere else to go to Boston for their treatments. So that's all I wanted to share with you.
Thank you. I appreciate your comments.
Thanks
for coming.
Thank you.
My name's John White. I'm been a part-time and full-time resident here in Presque for the last 10 years. I grew up in Maine, and when I'm not living here, we live downstate in Lemoyne. I'm in a unique position. I flew for both Colgan and for Penair. We talked about the employments. The last year or so, when Colgan was here, that was the end of the airline. They were going out, and the business kind of tanked. The ridership in Bar Harbor also went down. Penair has actually built it back up. So, you know, it's apples to oranges, but yeah, Colgan was doing really well, and then they threw in the towel at the end and offered very poor service, and Penair has brought the numbers, and I believe kept them about 10,000. The gentleman here was talking about the issue of pilot rest. Well, I can tell you what that's called. Looking at that schedule, that's called a continuous duty overnight or a stand-up overnight. So you're not going to have two crews here. You're going to have a crew that's going to show up in Newark at 9. They're going to fly the flight. They're either going to sit at the airport or go to a hotel for 2 or 3 hours, and then they're going to come back to the airport and operate the aircraft back to Newark, which sounds great on paper, but that's going to go to the most junior crews, because no one likes doing them. Who wants to stay up all night? And on top of that, they're going to be rated their max duty day. So any type of delay from snow here to Newark, you're going to have no backup crew here, and you're going to have a crew that's going to automatically have to have 10 hours of rest. So the plane's not going to go anywhere. They talk about the Saab being weight restricted. As far as I've ever known, and I've flown a lot of Embraers, they're oftentimes weight restricted. That's a long flight from here to Newark. So that'll be the same issues in weather. They're not going to be able to take everybody. And also, the other thing is we don't know what carrier it's going to be. Is it United? Which United Express? Is it ExpressJet? Is it SkyWest? Fee for departure typically goes to the lowest bidder. And when you've got the lowest bidder for something, that doesn't always mean you're getting top quality. So everybody sees United, they think they're going to get a United Airlines 757, but in fact, you're going to get the lowest bidder that United is presenting. So, you know, it's not always the best thing. The Saab versus a jet, yeah, the jet's faster, but the Saab was designed to fly in winter weather. It's highly maneuverable. It's great when the runways are icy. We can turn the plane without even using a tiller. We can just use reverse thrust on one engine and turn the plane. You can't do that with a jet with the engines that are mounted on the fuselage. So a lot of times when we get down to the end of the runway and it's icy and it's a tight turn, no problem. But you're going to find that with a bigger jet, with that type of configuration, a lot of times they're not going to be able to operate when we operate. As far as parity with Bangor, yeah, it's not the same market as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it would be great that we could match the price, but we're at the end of the line here. You know, it's 120 air miles. It can't be for free. It'd be great to be competitive, and hopefully Pen Air can do something to make it more competitive, but it's an apples to oranges thing. Bangor has more to draw from. You know, the county really doesn't. As you go up the interstate, you notice the gas prices, every town is a little higher. We're at the end of the road here. And I think Pen Air has been pretty reasonable with their rates. And there are a lot of places to connect to out of Boston. So
That's
Yeah.
over 3 minutes.
Yep. Okay. Well, anyways, thank you.
Thanks, Sean.
Hey, thanks. Interesting.
I have a question for Scott,
Oh.
based on his comments. With the new regulations on the amount of precip or whatever we can have on the runway, can you speak to that and how that might affect the icy conditions?
Essentially, in order to have any sort of confidence that we're going to be able to keep the airport open, we're going to chemical anyway. Everybody had to bid the chemical price. Prior to the change in the FAA regulations, John was absolutely right. You know, I mean, the regulations, prior regulations gave the turboprops an advantage. A lot of that advantage has been taken away. You get ice out there tomorrow. We're supposed to get snow, get some freezing rain, get some ice on the pavement, start snowing again. The airport's done. Okay, and so ice is not our friend anymore, and it never was. But FAA has really taken a lot of the ability for not only the airport to use its discretion, but also some very capable flight crews.
And that new regulation came with a pretty huge price tag for that chemical. Is that built into both bids, whether it's Pen Air or United?
Yep, it is.
Thanks. Thanks for waiting.
My name is Jill Boyd, and I'm a resident of Presque and frequent flyer of Pen Air. And one thing that I would like to bring out as a patient, I have 3 different hospitals that I received treatment from in Boston. And I will tell you that emotionally and physically, to try to stay somewhere until 10, 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and then get on a plane to come home would be almost, well, in fact, it probably would be impossible, depending on treatments and that sort of thing. So that's just something else to consider. Thank you.
Thanks. That's it?
Can out-of-staters come in now?
Yeah, sorry, we kind of deviated from that cycle right from the start because no one was jumping for the podium, so yes, please, anyone.
Thank you.
So good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. My name is Michael Walsh. I am the sales director for Pen Air, and I've been working with Pen Air for 2.5 years now. I've been empowered by Pen Air to create relationships here in the regions that we fly, in the cities that we fly to, and I can say that I've created some great relationships with some of these folks out here. I have 26 years in the industry. I've worked for 2 United Express carriers, and I've worked for one of the carriers that fly out of Terminal B. And I can tell you that you will not get the service and the compassion that you get from a Penair employee or our company, from our headquarters down to our employees here in Presque Isle, that you would get, excuse me, you will not get that compassion that you get from us. Mostly anybody that I have a relationship here in this room has my cell phone number, has our VP's cell phone number. You will not get that from any other carrier out there, and you will not get that type of service. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous. We've been here for almost 6 years now, and we want to continue to give to this community. You will not get anything like the project graduation tickets that we donate to all the graduating seniors that we graduate here from Presque Isle. You will not get the over $140,000 worth of tickets that we give to PALS and Angel Flight for those patients that need to get service, medical service. You're not going to get that from another carrier like Penair. Thanks for your time. That's all that I really wanted to say today.
Okay. Thanks for coming.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, please.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Did I give it to you?
No, just one.
That's all I got.
Sorry.
That's fairly sure.
My name is Reno, and I see everybody that's on this board. We've seen them come through the airport at one time, and we treat you with the best customer service we can do. That's because we work for Penair, and Penair says get the customer service out there, and we try, and we do a very, very good job. And in that pamphlet I just gave you, Scott was talking about the delays in Newark being, don't worry about that. But Newark Liberty had more departure delays than anywhere in the country last year. Only 3 or 4 flights leaving the gate on time, according to the government reports, ranking business airports in the United States. About the same percentage of Newark's arrivals and departures were the same. So if you're going to fly into Newark, you're going to expect your plane to be there. If your plane is coming from Florida, don't bank on it, because a departure and an arrival will mess everything up. And the issue is, unquestionably, is the busiest airspace in the United States. You've got LaGuardia, JFK, Teterboro, Philadelphia, and all them right there. And I don't want to go through all that, but that's pretty much because I want time to speak for others to speak and go on to other things. And as you can see, that there's a pricing sheet in here. Those are actual prices off the computer. And Ellen will talk to you guys about that. Alik, if you look at the page where it's a PALS letter from Eileen Monique, she had the same thought as the person that was up there saying, these people are compromised. They're already sick. And now you're going to try to flow them through Newark. And she says, that's not going to work. And then she says, then once they get back to Newark, out of Boston, if that's where they go for their treatments, and majority of them will, because they know the area, they're going to wait till 10 o'clock at night. So they may wait in the airport 8 to 10 to 9 hours. I wouldn't want to do it. And she says a lot of people will opt. They'll say, I'm not going to do it. I've got 6 months. Let's just enjoy the rest of my life and be done with it. They don't want the stress, like a lot of these people that go down there. They don't want that stress because they can't handle it, for one. And then, Guy, was that your husband? Yeah. Guy, Michaud flew out of here, and Roy, and he's still around, right? Oh no, he passed. But he was going down there, and I think you got what, an extra so many years?
Well, he was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer.
Right.
And because of the fact that we were able to go to Philadelphia, he lived an extra 4 years.
An extra 4 years. She got an extra 4 years out of her loved one. And that's only one. We just did 2 other people. One very young girl going from Easton. We took a picture in front of the Penair picture because they were so thankful to be given the opportunity to maybe extend their lives. And then we had another one that did the same thing. She wanted to compete because she appreciates what Pen Air is trying to do. And she's got a chance to live. She does. And just one more thing, I don't want to ramble on, but the 24th of December of this year and the 24th of December of last year, God has his timing is way off as far as putting these storms right when we've got the max amount of people coming in and no place to put them. So they canceled all the flights for that day. Pen Air rented 2 taxis. One came up here with 17 people on it. One came up here with 11 people on it. And then the plane got to come in full. Hugs and kisses were all over that parking lot. They got to see their loved one on Christmas Eve. Pen Air did not have to do that, folks. That was a weather-related incident. United is not going to do that. Plus, they're not going to do it out of Newark. I could pretty much guarantee you that. So, and that's twice. That's twice. That was last year and this year. They did the same thing. I don't know. I think Pen Air is very generous. And get back down to the community and what they've sponsored through the years, the biathlon. They put like 7 extra flights into the system to support getting all the athletes out here, their families, their coaches, everybody. And then just Tamik Wellness Days. I don't know if you all were there. If you missed it, I don't think you did because there's a lot of cars lined up that parking lot and lined up down that street. And Pen Air had a sob there just for that purpose. And you should have seen the smiles and they'd never been in an airplane before. And they got to go up there and the pilots would turn something on, it'd rattle and they'd go, oh wow, they just, that was, never seen the inside of a plane before. Just amazing to them. Project Grad was mentioned. And the biathlon, and that's all I got.
I really appreciate you putting this, the information together for us too, so we can look back on that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Reno.
And I mean, I don't think there's a question from any of us up here that, I mean, Pen Air's a great company. They've done a lot of good for this community. I mean, there's no question about that. I mean, one thing I will say though is this is a competitive process with the USDOT, and Pen Air's bid is $1.75 million more than United's. So in saying that, this decision might be out of our hands. The DOT might say that that's too much money. So I just, that we need to not forget that either. I mean, $1.75 million is a lot of money.
Yeah, maybe.
Good evening. I'm Murphy Forner, Senior Vice President of Ground Operations and Business Development for Pen Air. And I kind of like to take the emotion out of this a little bit and go back to business purposes here if I could. Senator Snow came to us in 2012 when Colgan went out of business and asked us if we would come 5,000 miles to set up an operation and provide service to your community. And it took us a lot of money and a lot of effort to come in and do that. And we have been very proud to provide service to you folks and have tried to join your community in many different ways, from the biathlon to the Christmas parade and other things. And we continue to want to be part of your community and provide the services that we do. This is my 3rd time in front of this group of people to discuss the EAS bid. The first time was when Senator Snow brought us in here, and there weren't any viable bidders other than us. And then I was in here 2 years ago, and you had a couple of other bidders at that point in time, but once again, no connectivity and other things that really worked for you. And I want to commend Scott for his efforts of putting together 6 very viable bids. In my opinion, if he was my employee, I'd give him Employee of the Year, because you guys have never had such an opportunity. And he has really done you a fabulous job. With that being said, Pen Air really wants to be your carrier. Our bid has 7 more landings per year, per week, per year, for almost $360,000 more income to your airport than any other the other bids, because we're doing 19 flights a week, and they're only offering 12, I believe. Is that correct, Scott?
That is not correct.
Okay.
Landing fees are essentially what you pay per landing is less than what a United would pay for landing.
Okay.
So if you look at the monthly total, as you do, okay, United would pay the same monthly total.
So United is paying the exact same monthly total that I'm paying for 3 flights with their 2 flights.
That's correct.
Okay, because our fees went up, as you well know, almost, well, actually doubled in fee costs this year compared to what they were before with the new bid. And I just wanted to make sure that, because I didn't get,
Every
to
bidder,
see.
every bidder had exactly
Okay.
the same.
I appreciate
fees
knowing
as
that. That's
Pan Air.
not something that was.
The only exception was on the hangar rent and the RJ operators
All right.
pay at Firewall.
Thank you, Scott. I wasn't aware of that, so I appreciate you clarifying that for me. With that being said, Pan Air, as you well know, this has been mentioned already, Chapter 11. Many carriers have been through Chapter 11, have come out stronger. Pan Air is going to come out stronger on the other end of Chapter 11, and we are going to be a solid company moving forward. And it's been mentioned the Terminal E situation in Boston. That's not a done deal yet. Massport has told us we're moving to Terminal E, but they're working with us on things like the possibility of vanning people from our airplane to Terminal B or to Terminal A to make their connections. Massport has to make some concessions for us. JetBlue is working with us on having connectivity with them. As you know, we have baggage interline agreements with United, American, Delta. We have our co-chair agreement with Alaska Airlines. If you go on Alaska Airlines, you can use their web page or their booking site and book any of their connectivity on their ticket stock through us to any place that they go. So there are plenty of opportunities using Pan Air. And those kinds of things are really important for us to make sure that you folks know that. We're a small company. We're a family-owned company, just like many of your companies in your town are. And our ownership has, we have never put a lot of money into marketing and other things. Our marketing is our partnerships, what Mike Walsh does, working with the schools, getting out and shaking hands and knowing people. And I bet, and I look around this room, and if I'm wrong, I apologize, you haven't seen or won't see another VP of a major company in here with the airline side asking you for your support. And this is my 3rd time back here, and I guarantee you if we get to bid it again, I'll be back again. And we want to be here. And that is our #1 goal. We have employees, we have pilots, we have flight attendants that live here and want to make this their homes. And we want to continue that. And thank you for your time.
Appreciate you coming. Thanks.
Good evening, council members. Thank you for having me. My name is Larry Bond. I'm the Director of Operations for Pan Air. I have family roots in the Northeast, but I reside in Anchorage. Of course, as a Director of Flight Operations, it's a mandated FAA position, so I'm well versed in the industry. Been in management almost 30 years, and I can tell you that part of my career, the last 25 years and change, I've been through 3 airline bankruptcies. It's natural. But I want to tell you about Newark arrivals and departures, flying out of that region for years, that on any given day, when the wind shifts, arrivals going into Newark add an extra easy 20 minutes, circle to land. And the other problem and issue you have with Newark Airport is the gates. You may land in Newark, but you got to take a number and wait for a gate. Every time going into Newark, 25 minutes to 40 minutes for a gate, easy. And it's no walk in the park, delays galore all the time, never on time. Same time, same thing with rush hours, departure, same thing. 30, 40 aircraft lined up waiting for departure. Yes, regional jets are nice and fancy, but they have more seats. Price of Jet A fuel's going up. So another thing I'd like to point out to you is that whoever United, if they were to be selected, would pick a supplemental operator. And right now there's a trend going on around the country where there's been, you know, you're talking 50 more, 50 seats on regional jet, and they're not filling that 70% capacity. I'll give you an example. SkyWest providing EAS service to Laughlin, Nevada, 90 miles outside Las Vegas, small community like here. They weren't meeting that goal. Well, guess what? They pulled out, no notice whatsoever. So that left the community high and dry. So I hope that you'll consider that and just think that Pen Air is family owned and we're here for the long term and long run. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Pete Koch. I work for the airlines. Some of you people here I see quite a bit. Business-wise, I'm the guy that greets you at the front counter, takes your bags out back, loads everything, maintains the aircraft at night. And I have questions for the airport authority and for you folks to take a hard look at. We need to look at the fact that right now the airport's understaffed. I can tell you that tarmacs aren't being cleaned, the parking lot's not being taken care of. I run the de-icer. The de-icer has glitches all the time. You know, we have one guy that's up there that has to de-ice a plane and fuel and do what he needs to do, and then he's got to come down and take care of us. I don't know what the standard operating procedures are. All I know is that once we call those guys 2 or 3 times, sometimes it gets really disappointing to try to figure out how we're going to get our flight out because it's all time sensitive. The hangar up there, last storm we just had, it was 5 days after that storm that the parking lots and everything else got cleaned up. Reno almost dumped a lady in a wheelchair. It's really tough to push, a wheelchair through the snowbanks. From my experience, we've had to shovel out the gates to get our trucks in for deliveries. We've had to shovel out and take care of the front steps. I think people need to go, the community needs to go and take a look at the airport. Go walk around and take a look at it and see, do you think that this is a place that you want to bring 20 more people in? Because understand, the guy that does the ticketing in the parking lot every morning, okay, he's also the guy that takes care of the trucks and has to maintain everything, up at the hangar. So will he be able to do that job at the same time? How many people are they going to hire? This truck that we're going to have to get to put down this de-icing fluid that's going to cost a pile of money, or whatever the fluid is we'll use on the runways, who's going to apply that? There are 3 trucks and 3 operators. There are 3 payloaders and 3 operators. And yet, these tasks don't get done. So my question to you is, how are we going to do it if we have to be in there earlier, 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock in the morning? And what is the city of Presque Isle going to have to incur for a cost for all of those things? See, everybody seems to say, well, it's just an extra amount of this. It's really not that. But I would ask everybody, after a snowstorm, come take a look at the airport. Come in and see if you'd want to wheel your mother or your father across the parking lot, with the snow and the crap that's on the ground. And take a look at the structure itself. Every one of those posts out front are rotten. The concrete that's in the front that people have tripped on is a lawsuit waiting to happen, and I'm surprised you guys haven't had one yet. Anyway, thank you.
You should have been here during budget meetings. We could have used you.
Hi, everybody. My name is Ben Nygren. I'm the chief pilot from Pen Air. I'm here visiting from Anchorage. It's a management pilot position required by the FAA. Just to give you a quick background, I've got 18 years working at Pen Air, flying 6 different aircraft types, 20 years in the industry. And I'd just like to expand on John White's comments about why, as far as reliability for operating in and out of your airport, why Pen Air is going to be your best choice. Contamination on the runway limits crosswinds, limits performance. Our aircraft, the Saab 340, is just a little bit more of a sports car, if you will, compared to an RJ or even a bigger jet. The airport manager talked about how with the new runway requirements from the FAA, we're all kind of in the same boat. Not strictly true. Runway conditions, friction is graded from 6 down to a 0. A 6 is a bare, dry runway. That's kind of your gold standard. Now you start getting a little bit of snow, a little bit more snow, water, what have you. You get down to a 0, and then the runway has to close. So he's correct. When you get down to a 0, the runway has to close. Where we can provide a benefit over, say, an RJ, I don't, pardon me? Oh, I don't believe they can go down to a 1 as reliably as, say, we can. It's more of a sports car. It does better with crosswinds. Another factor to consider, the first gentleman that spoke talked about how he used to get great big jets in here. A 7,500-foot runway like you've got is absolutely capable of that. But when it starts to get a little bit contaminated or the conditions get a little bit more adverse, the little sports car has just a better reliability. One way that we make our money in Alaska is operating in and out of Dutch Harbor on Alaska. Alaska Airlines pays us to go there. They used to fly their jets in there, and they recognized that they would get more reliable service by having our small plane do it instead of their jets. Just like to thank you for your time, and go Pen Air.
Welcome you all to Lake Wobegon. And I'm glad to see that most of you are in good shape. I wish I were. I've listened to the pros and cons of Pen Air versus United. And I'd only like to say that although I'm not a businessman, it seems to me that Scott and Charlie and the Airport Advisory Committee have done a remarkable job. But the emphasis that their remarkable work has been on business. Now, business counts an awful lot up here, dollars and cents. But I'd like to mention that for a lot of us, the ability to get on a Pen Air flight 8 in the morning, get to Boston, and get to either Mass Eye and Ear or the main Mass General or Brigham and Women's Hospital is a matter of life and death. And I wouldn't be here if it weren't for them. I wouldn't be on planet Earth. So I think there's another factor in terms of humanity and your relationship to your fellow man and woman. And so I would just like to urge that you balance your thinking out between pure business and the human element. And lastly, I'd urge you not to rush into it. Take your time to really think. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir.
Hello, I'm Ellen Nickerson. I'm the manager for Pen Air here at the Presque Airport. I just want to give you some airfare comparisons. This was booked the same way, all of them, the 12th of February and return on the 20th. Presque to Newark to Boston round trip, $466.33 on United. From Presque to Boston round trip, $203.10 with Pen Air. Presque to Newark, a round trip is $286 round trip. To Chicago, Presque to Newark to Chicago is $457 on United. From Presque to Boston, Chicago, a round trip is $350.10 on American. And from Presque, Boston, Chicago on Delta, it's $387.10. Going to Orlando, from Presque to Newark to Orlando, it's $492 on United. From Presque, Boston to Orlando on American, it's $415.10. And then from Presque, Boston to Orlando on Delta, it's $379.70.
I don't mean to interrupt you, Ellen, but
Yeah.
you just picked a certain day and checked
Correct.
airfares?
It was all the 12th of February and then return on the
So was there a class of service that was booked? Was there days, so many
I
days
believe-
before?
It's so many days before, right?
How,
I mean, there are 3-day advances and 7-day advances and 20.
Right.
Get the most discounted fare that you can. So that's why we went out so far. You're getting the 7-day in advance. You're getting the 14-day. You're getting the Mondays or the weekend stay. You're getting all the discounts off of these flights.
how could you select Presque to Newark when it doesn't exist?
Because of their proposal, because of their fare that they put in their proposal. That is their fare. If
But-
that
but
fare
that's-
is not
that's-
a legit fare, it's not a good proposal.
But that's their fare from Presque to Newark. You can't just assume that you're gonna add Newark to wherever else to that fare. I mean,
Well,
that's
are you
not how it
flying
works
in
when you're
Newark?
Okay,
flying
well,
within an
no.
airline.
I'm sorry, but rather than just argue, if you want to have a seat, we'll continue to listen to your
Yeah.
Okay.
comments. But there are fares are based on markets. I worked as a travel agent in college for a local business here in town. I have a little bit of understanding about booking some travel. Fares are based on markets. Yes, just because you're going through Newark, that you're going to pay for that, but they're gonna price things based. So I feel like this is unfair because the airfare across the board, and you know as well as I do, Ellen, it is
yeah.
very complicated.
It
There are a
definitely
lot of
is.
different,
There's a lot of-
yeah.
yeah.
Sometimes
So
it's cheaper to fly to Orlando than it is to fly to Boston.
Yep.
It's just the nature of the day and when you're booking and how you're getting there. So continue, but we'll keep in mind that these fares have not been
Created?
created yet.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
the only one that has been is the 143 Presque to Newark, so, and the Presque to Boston would be the,
We can't really add that on fully. I don't think that's how that will price.
Oh, okay. All right. But anyways, Pen Air has done a lot for this community. I've been with the airlines for 31 years, and I have never seen an airline to commit to a community the way Pen Air does. They've worked very hard to get all the connections and all the baggage connections. And Pen Air was the only one that agreed to come to Presque back 6 years ago when nobody else had made a bid or were viable bids. What happens in 2 years when United decides they don't want to be here anymore? Then what? Just leave that with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Alan.
Thanks for letting some of us who are not Presque residents speak. My name is Russ Layton, and I am a native of the area. Grew up in Limestone. Like Madame Roy, I live in St. David now, and have been working here in the airport area for a long time. And I have some safety and operational concerns about the new proposal as it would compare to Pen Air. And I don't mean for the first part of this to sound like a resume, but it's important for you to know my background if I'm going to be talking about aviation safety. So I went to Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University. I have a Bachelor of Science in Aeronautical Science. Towards the end of that, I worked for the NTSB for 2 years as an aircraft accident investigator. My first flying job for an airline was in 1989 here at Presque Isle for Valley Airlines, which then became Northeast Express. Flew Caravans up here for Telford Aviation, and then eventually got a job at a major airline at the time, Airborne Express, which is now ABX Air. I'm a pilot on the 767 for them, and we fly predominantly for Amazon and DHL. As part of that, I have been in the safety business for a long time because of the NTSB thing. So I am currently the Director of Safety for the Coalition of Airline Pilots Associations, which is not a union, it's a professional association, DC-based, where we work on aviation safety, security, governmental affairs, military affairs, that sort of thing. And as part of that, I sit on a bunch of different boards. One of the ones most pertinent to what I'm talking about now is the Commercial Aviation Safety Team, which is a national board. And I am not here speaking on behalf of any of those things I just said, but that is the expertise I'm bringing to the table when I come and talk to you as a citizen of Aroostook County. And none of this is to say that whoever comes here will not be a safe airline, but they will face a lot of challenges. One of the biggest ones I'm worried about is how the scheduling will be done from a flight and duty time and fatigue perspective. John White talked about it earlier. The way their schedule's written, the only way for them to do that efficiently is, like he said, the crew that flies up here from Newark on that last flight will be on a continuous duty overnight, which is the most challenging and most fatiguing flights that airlines will do. So they will never officially go into rest. They may, I don't know if they'll provide recliners for them at the airport or send them to a local hotel for a couple hours, but they will be at the very end of their duty limits when they show up the next morning to fly. If the schedule goes as published, they'll only have half an hour to play with, because when they arrive into Newark plus half an hour afterwards, which is when their duty time expires, they'll be at 11.5 hours of duty. 12 hours is their maximum. So if Scott's having trouble plowing the runway, or if there's a morning thunderstorm passing over, anything that will delay that flight more than 30 minutes, that first flight's going to get canceled. And that's just how it's going to go. That's going to be an operational part of how this is going to work. I also want to make it really clear, and it's been touched on here a little bit, but we keep saying United, and the only part of whoever comes here that will be United will be the paint job and the website where you go to buy the ticket. I don't want anybody to be under the impression that you're getting on a United Airlines airplane. And you know, when Charlie briefed us, and I can remember back in 1989 jump seating on Charlie's airplane. And Bar Harbor or Continental Express at the time did go. They tried Presque Isle to Newark in an ATR 42. And after a few times, like we do often up here, only having 4, 10, 12 people on the airplane, they stopped doing that and started going Presque Isle, Bangor, Newark. But when you go back to those days, things were a lot different. And so when Charlie was briefing us and talking about how many billions of dollars United was worth, whoever's coming here, they're not part of that. United doesn't have operational control over them. They are not part of, they don't control their safety programs, their fatigue risk management program. So I don't want anybody in the community to be under the impression that they are inheriting the safety record of United Airlines, or any of the operational successes United Airlines might be able to take credit for. They're no more United than Colgan was US Air. And we know what happened to Colgan. They went bankrupt, ended up getting partially out of business and partially absorbed into some other regional. So being under the United banner is no guarantee of business success, or that they'll be able to stay in business up here. And other than that, just a few notes I've taken from other things that have been said. There will be gate issues in Newark, more so than Boston, and the Continental and United systems have not been perfectly combined down there. There are times you end up in the old Continental gate structure, and we'll have to leave security, go to a different terminal, and re-go through security to catch a connecting flight. Times Square might be safer, but I dare you to walk around the periphery of the Newark airport. It's not Times Square, trust me. And other than that, you know, I understand the challenges up here. Now, I guess my big caution to everybody would be, don't get so in love with the idea of a jet that you think it's going to cure a lot of things. A lot of what gets done up here, whether it's in an airline or a potato field, gets done because local people know how to accomplish certain things in weather that's not ideal. When you go to start up any jet and it's 40 below zero, things don't work right. You get lights you're not supposed to get, and you have other things that happen, and the folks at Penn Air understand this. And when you have that kind of a local get-it-done mentality versus somebody who's like, I'm strictly going by the book here, that light's on, we can't go. There's a lot of stuff that won't happen, just like if you don't know how to get out there and bang on the lags on the potato harvester, you're not gonna get much done that way either. So anyway, don't fall in love with the idea of a jet. There's a lot of good to be said, and this doesn't affect my life in any way. I'll be getting to work and back either way. So just some things to think about safety and operationally, and thanks for listening.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks. It's nice to know we have such expertise in the county. Who's next? You guys?
Anybody else?
Anybody else?
Try to get up there again if I can. My name is Joel Jondro, St. Francis, Maine again. I come up here to thank all you guys for all you do for our safety and us. And I'd like to thank Penn Air for all the services they've performed for us and all the years you've been here. You did a marvelous job, and they take good care of the passengers, their patients. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gerald. If no one else wishes to speak, I guess we'll start deliberations or speaking. Any questions for anyone that spoke, or where you guys feel you're at? Any other, I mean, obviously, there are a lot of people in the room tonight that spoke. The counselors here for the last couple weeks since the bids came out have been absolutely inundated with emails and phone calls and visits. And so there's, you know, you got a perspective of what's happened here this evening. We've also have the perspectives of all the people that couldn't be here tonight, that may be watching on TV, that have reached out to individual counselors. Obviously, there's several letters on our desk here tonight. Thumbing through them before the meeting. Look, some of the stuff we've seen before, some's new. So, you know, we gotta ask the questions of the appropriate people and people that spoke as to what direction makes the most sense to go. But I guess I'd hear from you guys where you think we should go, or what your thoughts are on the service and some of the things that you've heard from other individuals in the city and also from all around the county. I mean, I've had emails from Fort Kent and Caribou, Mars Hill, you know, all over. So give anyone a chance, whoever wants to start, take a stab at it. Or else I'll keep talking. Go ahead, Craig.
Yeah,
I know you
well,
can't stand, you want to talk.
no, that's fine. Craig Green, counselor. Yeah, in the last 7 to 10 days, I've had over 362 people that have reached out to me. So, I mean, the 20-some people we've seen this evening, I've also talked to a lot of others.
And you and your Facebook.
And so I think that's a powerful medium, and I think that, you know, gives a lot of a chance for people to express what they do. This is certainly a situation where we have had a very caring, great air carrier, I should say rather, in Penn Air to serve our region. And they've served the 10% of the market that that they see admirably, very, very well. I mean, they couldn't get any better with what they've done with the patients and with the people who are traveling to Boston. The issue that I have is that, like anything, the county has seen a great deal of decline over the number of years, and we've seen a lot of issue with business, or even out-migration of youth, or just people not able to connect back here to come visit. So, so I have to kind of weigh in my mind the issue of the 8% of the population that is booking tickets from Aroostook County that's using Pen Air, and the other 92% that are going somewhere else. They're going to Fredericton, they're going to Bangor, they're going to Portland, and even drive to Boston and avoid flying on Pen Air at all before they get on a flight to fly somewhere else. And that is the issue. You know, we have not seen any kind of growth, and not for lack of trying. These people have reached out greatly to the community. They have been very, very good about interacting and donating and what have you. And if the issue was, we're good people, we have a safe airline, and we want you to come fly on it, if that was the issue, they'd have every damn person in Aroostook County flying on their airline, but they don't. They're missing out on 90% of the marketplace that are voting with their dollars when they go and they buy a ticket out of some other airport. So I don't really foresee where, with some of the issues that have been presented with, you know, I wish you well. I hope that, you know, you do come out of this bankruptcy well. I hope it does make you a stronger airline, but I'm not willing to put our Central Air Service on the line with a carrier that I can't be sure will be here in 2 years or even a year. I don't know that. Number two, I believe we have an issue that you haven't met your contract with us as the city, and we're owed quite a debt of money at this point. And I don't know how many months that represents of landing fees in the airport, but we haven't been paid for some time. And we can't continue that way. So that's another major issue for me. So that being said, I guess, you know, I really don't have... Yep.
Could I just do one clarification
Yep.
on that? The total amount that is owed the city is $243,000, which represents unpaid debt prior to the filing. 3 or 4 weeks ago, when I checked on the Pen Air account, after the filing, they are current. Okay. I just want to make that clear.
Okay.
And I think Murphy can confirm that too.
Pen Air in its ownership intends to pay 100% of its debt upon coming out of bankruptcy. It's something that Colvin and other carriers that have been in debt did not do for you folks.
Okay.
It is our intent to do that.
Okay. Well, that's good. But I guess, you know, in my estimation of all of this, that beyond our recommendation, and that's all it is a recommendation to the DOT. The DOT will ultimately decide who gets this contract. But I guess, you know, my personal thoughts are that we need to do something to grow the airport, to grow the region, and to be more pertinent to the large part of the marketplace that's going somewhere else. And so my vote is going to be to go to the United contract, and that's where I stand.
Excuse me, may I please address that comment from Councillor Green? It's Teresa Fowler. I'm the Executive Director of the Central Aroostook Chamber of Commerce, and as you know, I represent Presque and a large portion of Aroostook County. About a year and a half, 2 years ago, Mr. Wardwell called me and asked me if I could arrange to have some meetings throughout the region because he had a marketing consultant and they wanted to find out, and he had a grant to spend over $300,000 to market the Presque Airport. I haven't seen any of that marketing done. I know that one of the major findings of that, or of that consultant at the time, was, because I traveled with them for 2 days, was that it's not the Northern Maine Regional Airport in anyone's mind. It's the Presque Isle Airport. When we asked people where the Northern Maine Regional Airport was, they all looked at us with like, Frenchville? Maybe it's in Fort Kent. None of them had any idea. So I feel that having withheld the expenditure of that $300,000 has, and when you talk about not expanding your market, there was $300,000 to spend on advertising, which would have enhanced the reputation of the airport and the traffic that would have been aware that we had flights in and out of Presque Isle. Now, Penair, I did speak to them about that same time, and I thought they were going to reach out and talk to Scott about co-sharing some of the advertising, and I can't answer whether they did or not. But, you know, if you think that United is going to save this airport, I think the city needs to work at saving the airport, and I think that we all have to support it. And the only other comment I have is that my assistant flies frequently, and she said, I will never, ever fly through Newark. I will drive to Portland before I will fly through Newark. So that, and she's a frequent flyer through the Presque Isle Airport, are we biting off our nose to spite our face? And I don't have the answers, but I am very distressed that there's been $300,000 sitting somewhere for 2 years that could have been used to enhance the ridership out of this airport.
Teresa, that money got awarded about a year ago, and we've always known that we're going to have, every 2 years this comes up. So it didn't make sense to spend all that money and market an airline until we knew who we were going to have.
Couldn't we market the airport? Couldn't we market the airport?
Wow. What are you saying, wow?
You didn't spend money that you had sitting?
We have spent the money. We have spent a great deal of the money. We just got done with, and I spent a great deal of time with these folks as well, that I went out all last winter on several adventures with them. I went hiking with them this summer so they could see the DeBully area and Fort Kent. I went on ATVs with them so they could see the county. I took them snow sledding all the way up to St. Gat and to Long Lake into the sporting club, as well as they have some good video of right here in town in our own Presque Isle Inn. So this is something that we have worked very hard to produce these videos. The remainder of the summer videos were just done and released to us in September. That's when we completed the project. So we, again, are in the middle of this competitive air bid that we're coming up on, and why would it make any sense for us to start a major campaign when 2 months later we're going to find out who's going to bid on air service and what we're going to have for service in the community? So it's not a 2-year project, Teresa. It's something that's lasted about 2 months old at this point, not 2 years.
Craig, I remember when I spent the 2 days, and it was not 2 months ago, nor was it this past fall.
Yes, it was. It most certainly was. So you need to go back and rework your calendar, and thank you.
When was the money?
Thank you. Anyway, I don't know when the money was awarded. I do know when I was called and asked to do those meetings. So, thank you, Craig.
Thanks. Scott, you want to speak to that, when the money was awarded for a grant?
Scott, could you just give us some more details about the timeline of all that?
Kim Smith, Public Information Officer for the city. I just want to say that these have been ongoing, and the gentleman arrived to do the ads, or the filming for the ads, in January and July, and they are in the process and have been being worked on this whole time. It takes a while to go through the footage, to create ads, to brand them. It's not an overnight process, but it has not been 2 years.
No.
Thank you. You know, there's nothing more frustrating than government and grants and trying to make things work through this process, as you can well imagine. And lots of things take way longer than they should. I mean, in all due respect. We've had grants for 3 years we haven't been able to use, and most FAA related. You wish to address the council, sir? Or are you
Yeah,
walking out? Okay. I wasn't sure, because some.
Paul
people were
Griffith.
Hi, Paul.
Hi, Emily. If you take your money and drive to Bangor and get a hotel room and get a cheaper ticket, when you're all said and done, it's costing you more to go to Bangor. You got to find out why they're going to Bangor, because it's no cheaper. My brother does it all the time. He said, it's just as cheap. Go to Presque, get on the plane, and fly to Boston or wherever you're going. So you got to find out why they're doing it. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. Are you all set for a minute?
I fought with everyone I need to. I'm all good.
Okay. Well, I'll follow up with my comments. I guess I fly quite a bit. Heard from a lot of people that fly, and to your comments, sir, about thinking about business versus you know, the pulling at the heartstrings, and what I had mentioned before about the fact that we're all really creatures of habit. And I'm a Boston fan. Yeah, definitely a Boston fan. But for the business climate, and to your point, Paul, why do people go to Bangor? I've been flying out of Bangor the last 2 years along with everyone else in my company. And for anywhere other than when I'm flying to Boston, which is 90% of the time. It has nothing to do with marketing. It has to do with doing business. And it has to do with expanding our business in Aroostook County and making business viable in Aroostook County. And if we don't have business in Aroostook County, then we don't need an airline. And we don't need an airport. And we don't need it plowed. So honestly, it comes down to not what the dollar amount is for that fare for business, for the business traveler. It comes down to, you know, shoes up to shoes down, being on the job. And for most business people that I have spoken to in the last 7 to 10 days, it's about getting to where they need to be to do business. And being able to continue on their work day without spending a full work day of either paying an employee to travel or and a full work day back in order to do something that someone from someone that's located in the Charlotte, North Carolina area or Orlando, Florida area or Boston area or New York area can go do in an afternoon and go back home and be with their family. It comes back to who you can hire, the quality of life that you can give them, and the fact that they can still get their job done on X number of hours that you're paying out for them. It's been, I mean, we do business all over the East Coast, and there were times that out of our Florida operation, my sister could travel to a destination in an afternoon and do a business meeting, and it took me 3 days out of Presque. 2 overnights to go to Bentonville, Arkansas, to come back here. So I'm away from my family for 2 nights, 3 full business days. She goes there and goes home in an afternoon. And out of Bangor, yeah, it's a little more pavement to hit, but at least you can get there, get a meeting done, and come back. And it's not perfect. And it's never going to be perfect. There's going to be delays. There's going to be snowstorms. We live in northern Maine. I don't care if it's Pen Air or United or Delta or whatever. We're going to roll with the punches because we're Bainers and we're from Aroostook County. So it's never going to be perfect. I have a difficult time with this decision because I love going to Boston. I'm a creature of habit. I want to go to Boston. And technically, quite frankly, I don't even mind driving to Bangor for the 90% of the flights that I do take. So when this came up, it really didn't even matter to me personally, but it matters to me because I want businesses in the area to be able to employ people here rather than somewhere else. And that's key, because if we can't, if it's not viable for people to do business here, then it doesn't help us. On the medical side, and I know I'm sorry I'm rambling, but on the medical side, I'm going to go back to the creature habit again. We're creatures of habit. Carrie and Tamik, probably these doctors up here that have been here for a long time, have developed wonderful relationships with the hospitals that they're used to doing business with, because that's where the flight went. And I'm sure over time that we probably can develop, well, I'm not sure, I don't know anything about it, but I'm thinking that over time that we would develop those relationships and the working relationships to the wonderful hospitals in the regions that we can get to easily. But I don't know, I'm torn. I'll take a question, Reno.
Emily, I'm glad to see that you're honest about you go down to Bangor sometimes. It works out for you, it's better for you, and I'm glad that you're honest about that. But on the other hand, that's a stab in the back to everybody that's in Aroostook County who wants to build a bigger airport. The money goes to Bangor, they're loving it. It ain't no different than me going down to Bangor, buying a car, and I've seen the commercials on TV with that guy from Caribou. He's got that, let's keep our business here in Aroostook County and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, that is true. But that market that you have going to Bangor will not change. Will not change. And it's sad that that's what we do in Aroostook County. We turn our backs on our own people, our own county, to go down to Bangor. Let's say buy a car. Save $500 down in Bangor, I'm good to go. Right? If you save $50 on a ticket, you've got 3 people flying out.
Has nothing to do with saving money on a ticket. Usually it's just as much or more. It has to do with being able to leave Aroostook County and do business to earn more money to bring back here so that it can help pay more tax here. Do you want to come up to the podium, sir? We have a great viewing audience here on TV too that likes.
Great. So I said my name's Robert Ring. I'm from Woodland. I've lived here in Woodland area for I guess about 12 years. I'm a merchant mariner. I travel all over the world, and I've used Pen Air. I've used Culligan. One of the things I think you're missing, you're talking about business in the county and how important it is. I travel all over the world to work, and I bring that money back here. I'm not alone. So I've built relationships with Pen Air. I worked in Alaska for 3 years for Shell, so I know them really well. They're very safe. Whoever you have come in here, we'll have to build some sort of relationship with them, and we're going to be starting from another point to build that relationship. You need to be aware of that. Because I remember the early days when Pen Air came up here, there were work rest times, there were canceled flights. I missed a ship in Japan because I didn't make a flight. Those things are important. And they've kind of got it knacked right now. They know where they're doing, they know how they're getting it done, and we're getting those flights. Just remember that as councilman. You're from Presque Isle and you're making that decision, but the decision you make doesn't just affect Presque Isle. It's all northern Maine here and Canada. No stress on you, right? I mean, it's international. People are. I've seen more New Brunswick plates in that parking lot when I come to show up for a flight than I see Maine plates at times. So just no pressure, but decisions that you make. I know it seems like a great deal. I'm not, and I talked to Scott today because I'm very concerned because if this falls, I am going to have to every month when I go to work I got to drive to Bangor, and I don't want to do that. I've always flown out of this airport, unless the flight got canceled.
Can I just ask you why you would have to fly out of Bangor instead of here if
this
it was going to Newark instead?
If this doesn't fit, if the United solution as a DBA fails like Culligan did, what are you going to do?
But, I mean, you could say that about Pen Air or any airline that's here.
I don't think Pen Air is going to fail, because I've seen them. I've seen them in action. I've seen them in Alaska. I've flown into Dutchwood. So
everybody has to start somewhere, and Pen Air started up here.
right, but what I'm trying to point out, Randy, is that they showed up at a time when we didn't have any options. Where is our you know, a loyalty? Thank you, sir. I mean, you got a 50-person aircraft. How many seats is that you're going to fill? Do you think you're going to fill all 50? Does it matter? I mean, if it's a landing base, maybe it doesn't matter. But have you flown through Newark before?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I have too. And when you're trying to make a connection, it's not as seamless as it's been portrayed. And I think other people have said that. But I don't want to take up a lot of your time. I just want you to understand that there are people here that depend on this service for their livelihoods. And the only reason I'm here, living in the county, I moved up here. I'm from downstate. I moved up here and bought a piece of land and built a house.
I can't blame you there.
That's it, right? That's why I'm here. And just so you understand, it isn't.
And it's not, no matter what our options are, and that's why I'm kind of pulled, you know, there's no one size fits all.
Yeah.
There are going to be businesses that thrive because of a United connection in Newark, and there are going to be businesses that don't.
Yeah.
And they're going to be.
I'm one of those guys that depends on it. So make that decision in mind that there are other people besides Presque that are relying on your good judgment. That's all. Thank you very much.
Hey, thanks a lot. I appreciate your comments. Oh, sorry. Yes, sir.
I listened to a lot of comments. I'm Alfred Giberson. Craig has been my friend since a kid.
This big, yeah.
I don't agree with you, Craig. I want to see something that you're saying you're going to build on. On what? What's the council come up with that you're going to build on having another airline service here?
Well, the number of employments has been right at, we're kissing the 10,000 mark here for the last couple of years, as I understand. And my biggest concern is when and if that service goes to Terminal E, that we lose even the few people that are taking Pen Air to make those connections on American and United where they are in the terminal.
I don't agree with that.
I think it has a strong
that.
potential that it will drop below 10,000, and then we're going to be looking for $1 million plus out of revenue from our community.
The thing, Al, is that we have about 100,000 seat market here in Aroostook County of people flying. I mean, we know that from the zip codes that tickets are bought. And so when we start looking at that, and we know that we only get 10 to 12,000 of them in Presque, we know that there's another 80-some thousand people that are living here, that are your neighbors, that aren't using this airport because of the reasons that we've noted. They can't get good connections, and they can't get the pricing. And
so you think a new airline is going to change that?
Yes.
How?
Well, if we look at where those people are traveling to, and it's been mentioned here already, the #1 destination is Orlando, Florida. That's where most people that fly from Aroostook County go. That's the #1 destination. The number, well,
that's, I mean, that's what the, that's what the data shows. It shows.
Yeah. And so the #2 destination is New York City. The #3 destination is Washington, D.C. The #4 destination is all southern Florida airports combined. And the #5 destination is Boston, which this airline serves beautifully. So what we're saying is there's 4 other destinations that are more important to the travelers in Aroostook County than Boston. And by being able to have a airline that connects to those airports will, in the end result, make for more people able to travel from Aroostook County to their destination than they currently do by air. And that's not something we've made up. I mean, that's what we're relying on from data from the people that we've employed to do those things to help us to make these decisions. So I mean, this is nothing that we're making up on the fly here. This is
What
data.
about all the testimony of the folks who do fly to Boston for health reasons and for those things and make a connection? I like to visit family. Now, you're saying that I got to fly to Newark
And back to Boston.
and back to Boston.
So,
I'm going to double my fare.
so for me, like, I'm looking at this completely objectively. I don't have any family members that work for Pen Air. I don't have any family members that work for United. The only thing I'm looking at is what's going to benefit the most people. And there's no question that if we go to Newark, it's not going to be as good for people going to Boston. And based on the medical flights, it looks like about 1.4% of the people go to Boston for medical. And that's going to be an issue.
That's just the subsidized.
You're right. That's just the subsidized
For Angel Flight.
Angel Flight and PAL numbers.
Only, not
Yeah.
the full price paying or PALs or.
Yeah. No. You're right.
What's the total percentage, Doug? Do you know that?
No, I don't think
It's my
anyone.
first day, I didn't get that far.
But for me, like, if I'm going to look at this objectively,
Sorry.
there's a couple things. There's the subsidy requested. It's unfortunate, but Pen Air's subsidy that they've requested is 1.75 million more than United. It's 1.3 million more than they managed to serve the airport with last year. I don't know why. Maybe somebody from Pen Air can tell me why it went up by 1.3 million. Well, 200,000 of that represented the change in Boston. About 300,000 of that represented the change in our landing fees, but there's still another $700,000 or $800,000 there, and I think that's going to matter a lot to the DOT. But for me, at the end of the day, I'm looking at this as what decision is going to benefit the most people in this region, and if the most people in this region are going to Orlando and they can get to Orlando by noon instead of 6 o'clock with just one jump.
They must be all there because they're not here tonight.
Well, we've heard from a lot of people, that's right. You've got kind of a show going on here.
Well, I mean, we've questioned our top businesses and our hospitals, and we've heard from a lot of people, and many of them think they could do business better if they could get to the East Coast before noon.
And as it has already been mentioned, this isn't just a local thing, it's a regional thing.
Right.
So you gotta respect what
Well,
some of the other folks in the county
that's the
have to-
point, is that, you know,
have to
we.
have its input, not just only this council.
Oh, absolutely, no, and in light of that, like I said, we've reached out to, you know, the hospitals in the region, we've reached out to major businesses in the region that employ several hundred people, and we've got their input, and their input is not different than what we've expressed to you.
So what is,
So was the survey constructed on public dollars?
Scott, what
Survey?
was the formation of the survey? Can you explain?
It hasn't been just one survey. This process actually began in 2005. 2005, we did another big study in 2012, and then another big study in 2016. In all three cases, it was done on public dollars, and that information, a lot of it, has been made public. Okay. In fact, the 2005 study, a lot of that data was shared with Pen Air even before we arrived here, even before they arrived here. The 2012 data, which was a true market study that you're relying a lot on, that was shared with Pen Air at various conferences. And I think Murphy can in fact verify that. Okay, the 2016 data, which potentially the timing of that I'm not sure of. That may have been shared with Murphy. I'm not totally sure, but substantially the data in 2016 verified the data in 2012.
Well, that's the data from Voltaire, right?
Excuse me?
Is that the data from Voltaire that you shared?
The 2005 data was actually HNTB. The 2012 data was Sixel, and the 2016 data is Voltaire. Okay. Also, in 2011, there was a business survey that was done in Canada as well as in Aroostook County. That data was shared with Pen Air before they ever came here.
And the essential air service before Pen Air was
Colgan Air.
Colgan Air, but the dollar amount was
It was substantially
substantially
less. You know, but the thing is, you have to remember Colgan, being a U.S. Airways Express carrier, had a lot different reception than Pen Air did at Boston Logan. There's a lot of big costs associated for Pen Air to operate that operation in Boston, because they're providing their own people there. They've tried to defer some of those costs by doing ground handling for other airlines. But what you've done with Pen Air, okay, because I don't want to give this impression that Pen Air has just goosed the EAS subsidy. It's very expensive to run a operation on the East Coast if you're based in Anchorage, Alaska. And I think Murphy would agree with me on that. And that makes it difficult. One of the reasons why United and SkyWest bids are more competitive is because they're not setting up operations in either Newark or in Dulles.
If Pen Air or any Boston carrier, if we went with a Boston carrier, I mean, this tonight has turned into Pen Air versus Newark, but any Boston carrier, or any carrier for that matter, goes below 10,000 enplanements per year, do we stand to lose what is the essential air service completely?
No. Essentially, what you lose is you lose primary airport status with the FAA. And when you go from a primary airport to a commercial airport, your entitlement for capital improvements goes from $1 million down to $175,000 on an annual basis.
Okay.
The EAS is separate from that.
Okay.
Yeah.
If we increase our enplanements, then can we expect at some point that we could get out from underneath the EAS, that a airline would want us just because of the viability of the market, not because there's federal funding? Is there a potential to ever get out from underneath that?
There, in fact, is. And one of the reasons and one of the questions that nobody has asked here tonight that is important is, why did United bid this? Okay? Hey, United is a big airline. Why do they need this? Okay? There was a shift at United that began, just about a year ago, where the old planning department, some of the folks leading that department actually left the airline, and the new folks brought on were actually folks out of American Airlines. American Airlines has actually gone into EAS markets, stimulated the market with regional jet service, different fare structure, going to a different hub, and has actually so stimulated the market, has gotten the airports totally out of the program. You know, and we have some of those American folks who are now over at United that basically believe, based on their own data, that can be done.
Oh, sorry.
Just give you a couple more.
Yeah, come on up to the podium here, and you can be next, Kay.
Just a couple things that you keep emphasizing. The survey part, I'm asking
Can you
not
just
necessarily.
state your name?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Melissa Roberts, I'm the VP of Marketing and Sales for Penair.
Thank you.
You bet. So the survey, it's not so much, I mean, I don't believe we've seen the 2016 survey. It would be nice to see it. But what I'm questioning is how many people in this room have actually seen it? You know, is it posted on your website? You're starting to make a decision based on that survey, but it doesn't sound like to me anybody in the room's ever seen the survey. So if you want to substantiate what your claims are, you might want to share that with the general public.
One of them is on our website.
Okay.
It was part of the council packet, and I did put it out there also.
Okay, perfect. I didn't know that beforehand, but
Sure.
that's great. I think the other thing that this gentleman was trying to make a point of is that maybe the decision that you make isn't necessarily a bad decision, but you are going to start all over again. You started all over again when Penair came in, not because you voted somebody out, but because that airline could no longer service the community. And we still started all over again. That's why the employments, the very first year when we were only here for 6 months, were only 38,800. So just so you know, because you keep coming back to the employments and the $1 million, in the last 2 years, we have hit 12,891 last year in 2015 and 12,779 in 2016. So we are growing the market and we are getting you that $1 million as well as many of the other investments that we're putting into the community. So I just wanted that to be on the docket.
So if you were in my shoes, I've got a question for you.
Sure.
If you were in my shoes and you wanted the Department of, yeah, if you wanted to sell to the Department of Transportation, why this council should recommend Penair when they're $1.75 million more, how would you do it? What would you say?
Well, I'm not sure if you're actually looking at everything apples to apples. I don't have your survey. I haven't looked at it. I mean, I guess it was out there and we probably should have.
This isn't anything to do with the survey, just the bids.
Can I speak to that?
Sure, any of you, I mean, because
He's
we would have to do that if we were going to make a recommendation for you.
He's my boss.
Bid is different than United's bid. Our bid is tied to all 3 communities, and if you put our bid to the 3 communities that we currently service, we are less than the other bids if you built them together. Our bid says we want to serve Bar Harbor, we want to serve Plattsburgh, and we want to serve Presque. And the way we put our bid together, it encompasses all of those. And it is not a single community bid. Penair, I can guarantee you, we could not afford to do a single community bid with our aircraft, our structure, our costs. Our bid would be phenomenal because our costs would be phenomenal. We are not a United. We don't have the ability to have the $1 billion behind us in a hub that's in Newark or someplace and 900 employees to turn a 50-seat airplane whenever you wanted to do it. We've had to build a structure. We've had to establish an operation. Our bid, if you look at just the Presque part of it, yes, it's higher than the others, but if you put our bid together with all 3 communities, it's less. And yes, I know that Plattsburgh has already said they're going to choose another carrier, but we are fully understand from the DOT that if Presque chooses us and Bar Harbor chooses us, that the DOT is going to look at the bid package, not just the individual process. And we would still have a very good opportunity to get the entire bid program. And that's what we really need. We need you folks to come out and say you want our service and you want us to be here. Because if you don't, then we're not going to be able to probably sustain our Northeast operation. We're going to pull out and have to go find other things to do business with. But you're talking just our Presque Isle bid. If you put our Plattsburgh bid, if you put our Bar Harbor bid into the same package, we're less. We're in the marketplace.
Why are you giving all the savings to Plattsburgh and Bar Harbor then?
It's built on air miles and how far it goes, and you get more service. You're getting more airplanes than the Plattsburgh market gets. You definitely get more service than the other. It's just how the bid formula was put together. It's the same program that we used back in 2012. We did not choose to build it independently and differently. So it's our cost. I mean, you raised your landing fees. We had to build a program that encompassed us having to move away from the American operation in the B terminal and become totally independent in Boston. So we took all of our legitimate costs and put them out there. And DOT allows any carrier that bids this a 5% profit line. So we put our 5% profit line in. Our numbers are our numbers, and I understand that. No matter what you folks choose today, the DOT is going to decide who gets this bid.
That's right.
They are going to take the opportunity and look at what you recommend. They're going to take the opportunity to look at all of the letters that people send in and what they say, and it's going to come down to what DOT wants to do with it. If they look at it and say Pen Air's package is the best package that's out there, Pen Air will get the bid. If they say the best package out there is to give SkyWest Plattsburgh and United Express this and Boutique the next one, that's how they're going to do it. But it's up to you folks, and the decision that the Presque Isle Council makes today is going to weigh in to this process. It's not the final say.
Right.
And whatever you choose, these folks, when it comes down to it at the very end, they have to hold their heads up and say, we've done the right thing for our community. And for that, I always commend the public process. And I thank you for your time. But that's why Pen Air's bid is higher. If you look at our bid independently, yes, it's higher. But if you put it together as the package, it is not. Thank you.
Okay.
I have a question for Craig back. You said you sent out.
You want to come up to the podium and tell everybody who you are?
Kevin Simmons, I'm a business owner in Caribou and Presque Isle.
Excuse me?
Kevin Simmons.
Kevin Simmons, okay, sorry.
And I'm a business owner in Caribou and Presque Isle. You had mentioned that you had sent out questionnaires to businesses in the local area. How many hospitality businesses did you send them to?
We had an informal process that we talked to people. We didn't survey every business in every community.
Well, wouldn't the hotel properties in the area, wouldn't that benefit information to you?
Well, I would say with the number of conversations we've had in the last week, you've certainly been surveyed and had every opportunity to tell me anything you wanted to.
We didn't discuss.
I've talked to you.
Excuse me, sir.
Over 30 minutes.
We did not speak on what type of business I get from the airline.
When when those surveys went out, Scott, were those went to every business, didn't they? What? That's a long time ago. I mean, we're talking back in what, 2011 or something?
The 2011 survey really concentrated on larger employers, okay, and what we were trying to get there from that survey is how they themselves and their employees use business travel.
Okay. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks, Kevin.
Yes, Troy.
Troy Haney, Caribou. I just want to listen in to everybody. Obviously, there's a lot of emotion in changing an airline and things like that. And taking that out of it, some of the comments, though, I do want to challenge, I guess. The comment keeps coming back to Orlando, and I'm pretty sure I don't disagree that that's not the #1 destination. Everybody looks to go somewhere warm and see Mickey Mouse and take their family and all that good stuff. So I certainly don't disagree with that. But I think you need to look deeper into it, because I would almost guarantee that you probably find a large percentage of the Orlando travelers go to Bangor for the Allegiant direct flight because of the convenience. They can get on the plane at 8 o'clock and be there at 3 o'clock. As I said, I travel all over the country. Earlier, this last week I was in Fort Lauderdale. I left here at 8 o'clock in the morning and I landed there at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. pretty convenient flight down to Boston. Jumped over, I had to change terminals to JetBlue. It's a normal process down at Boston. It is what it is. It would be similar at LaGuardia. So, you know, and you mentioned that with your business, you choose to go to Bangor and fly there because it's more convenient to get you more places quicker. I would challenge that because I fly literally, and I know you have operations in the West Coast. I fly to the West Coast. I fly to Oregon. I fly to Denver. I fly to St. Louis, Florida, Washington, D.C. And again, regular flights all over the place. And I can never really think of when I can't get where I need to go within the day. It is an all-day process traveling on the West Coast or traveling the Central Part. When you talk about Arkansas, I don't think you can get there any quicker in Bangor. I really don't. If it is, it's a nominal maybe hour or two at the most. So I just challenge that, and I just challenge those comments because, again, that's your experience, and Craig, you have your comments, and all the counselors. I don't know how much you all travel, but obviously you're all influencing each other. So I think it's just you need to put all that into your thinking caps on this. And again, for myself personally, as I said earlier, going to the West Coast, being in LaGuardia early and getting to the West Coast, that's a much simpler life for me. But looking at it from a bigger picture, it's probably not as convenient for everybody that uses the airline here. So, thank you.
Thanks. Do you want to weigh in, Lee or Randy or Mike, Doug, on your thoughts? Lee?
Sure. It seems like tonight we've been operating a lot on fear, and fear of the unknown and fear of change. Granted, nobody likes change. Nobody likes to see what they know, what they've done for the last 6 years to be upended. I'm a person that deals with a lot of folks in Aroostook County. I'm all over the county all the time, dealing with people out of state who are potentially moving here. I'm in the real estate business. And there's a lot of people like the gentleman from Woodland who would love to live here or really want to be here and commute to their work somewhere else. Telecommute, go see family, but operate out of here. Really, we see a lot of that, folks that see the value in this area, and I think that's probably why we're all here, is we see value in this area. So we're always walking a fine tightrope of, from point A to point B, and one foot in front of the other, and we got to make the most careful choices we can, and one little breath of air could blow us off the tightrope, and who knows where we're going to be. So I hate to operate, when we're on that tightrope, I hate to operate on fear and fear of the unknown. I think we really need to look at, take a very pragmatic approach and look at the opportunity to potentially grow. We definitely need to grow air service here for it to continue to be viable. A lot of the folks that I deal with that have moved into the area or are visiting the area to potentially seek employment, one of the concerns they have is the connectivity in Boston. It takes a while to kind of get through there to here, not necessarily the airport itself, but with flight times and things like that. So getting to a bigger hub, I think, has got some value for that. Is Newark the most glamorous and fancy place in the world? No, but it's not going to be the destination. Boston is typically a destination for Aroostook County folks, but we've also got to look outside and how can we bring more folks into Aroostook County. And no, they're not going to go to Newark, but they might go to Orlando or New York or California or wherever. And what's the quickest way we can get them there, ticket them all the way through, get their bags all the way through. So that's just kind of a pragmatic approach. I have worked a lot with Pen Air. I've traveled Pen Air quite a bit myself. They're excellent on customer service. They're very friendly to deal with. They do a fantastic job at what they do, and I can't discount that one bit, really. I'm very satisfied on that side. But if you throw everything up in the air, what is our best opportunity for growth? And I feel like we can't just pigeonhole ourselves in Boston. We've really got to broaden it and look at some other options. I do commend Scott for wrestling up all the bids. I know he's been working on trying to get more interest in this airport, and we definitely need that. So thank you. This is, while it seems like it's kind of tenuous here, it's a good, I feel like it's an excellent problem to have, that we have 6 airlines that want to be here. That tends to make me believe that maybe air service is improving and maybe the potential here is growing, which I do believe in my heart. Aroostook County is a great place to be, and there's lots of growth potential, and maybe the airlines see that even more than we do. So, thank you.
Paul?
Yes. My name's Paul Griffith. I'd like to ask just one thing. If you've already made up your mind, why are you wasting everybody's time here? Really?
Good point.
Well,
I think I said I was
that's not
torn.
fair.
So
That's really,
That's unfair.
yeah, that's really not the point.
Why is
The-
it unfair?
Well,
You've already told it.
well, let me
You've
explain.
already said that
Sir,
where you're
sir,
going.
not everyone has their mind made up. We're listening objectively to everyone.
I mean, I've told you where I stand, but let me just explain something. I sat out there in that seat, actually right where that lady with the tweed jacket is, and I was rather upset because I, like you, did not entirely understand the process of what went on and how things get to this point. And things start at this point back a number of years ago when gentlemen like Charlie Namer and other people sitting in the room who are citizens in the community volunteered to sit on the board. And they sit there and they have monthly meetings and they discuss the ongoing operations of things in the community and, in their case, the airport. So they interact. So again, this is not something that starts and happens like that. It doesn't. And then they employ people to advise them, and they get surveys, and they do different things that they find out about, along with dealing with airlines, going to trade shows, and what have you. So hold on a second. So those citizens of the community, they aren't employed by anyone, they don't get paid, they're just citizens, sit on those boards to advise us because they get to see the entirety of everything. They get to interact with the city manager, the airport manager, they get invited to go to trade shows and other ways. So they compile knowledge about this, and they're our neighbors, and they're our friends, and they help to make decisions and make a recommendation. Then, once that happens, and that comes forward to a board like ours, they make a recommendation to us. They say, you know, we have done this research. We have looked at this. We have employed different means to get our knowledge together. And on the whole, this is how we feel. And sometimes that's exactly how we as the community feel, and sometimes it isn't. But it isn't because the community is wrong and they're right, or they're wrong and you're right. It's just that they have studied this, and then they make their recommendation of what they think's in the best interest of the community. So it's not that anyone's made up their mind, but we're reacting to all of the information, which is, at this point, hundreds of pages of things that we've been privy to look at. And so we are operating from that, and I'm not discounting your personal interactions with whatever it is you've done, because that's important and that's personal to you and how you interact with this. But we're looking at not only the entirety of you that are sitting here, which is very important, but also the other 70,000 people in Aroostook County that we know somewhat about because of the research that our committee and the people have done. So it's not fair to say that you don't have no input on what we're doing. It's just that when you get to the public hearing process, it's at the 11th hour, not 1 o'clock. And so by now, a lot of this research and all these things have come together, and a decision has been put forward by those committees to us
3 minutes.
to react to. So I want to give you a good answer of what.
You've had your time.
Okay.
Okay, wait. Do you have a comment or a question or what?
Right, comment.
Okay.
I'm wondering why you're taking the surveys that was done in 2005, 2011, that's even before Pen Air got here.
Yeah, well, it's
2012.
2016.
2016.
Look, you know,
Why would you even bring up ones at the time before they got here?
It's just all about having
it's
information.
Just history and information. It's good to look at all of that. I haven't heard from really you or Randy.
Everyone has said pretty much what I concur with. I'm a little bit disappointed that the whole process here has been denigrated with the fact that we've already made up our mind. No, we haven't.
Well, according to the
Excuse me, Kevin, excuse me. Kevin, I'm speaking.
You're speaking out of turn.
I'm speaking. That's good. To denigrate this whole system when we are here to listen. There could be one person that stood up and has an idea that we hadn't thought about before. I want to hear that person. I don't agree or disagree with what everyone said here. Gathering information, there might be something that we don't know. It will help us in the decision-making process. But let's go back to the basics of we aren't making this decision. The DOT is going to make this decision partially on maybe our recommendation, maybe. But they pay the dollars, they invest the money. They want to see air service up here in whatever form. It is our duty to pick the best that what we would think would accommodate all of the air users in this area and move on from that point. If you don't agree with that, I'm sorry. I can't help you. If you don't agree with what they found in these surveys, I'm sorry. But in the meantime, it's back on us to do what's best for the majority of people in this region up here. We have Scott Wardwell, Charlie Namer, who put in countless hours getting these 6 bids. This is years of work, and they have done an incredible job to get it to this point. I don't want to drop the ball. I think they've done very, very well. And if somebody doesn't agree with me, it's just my opinion. Thank you.
I'm in hopes that you have not already made your decision, but according to Craig Green, that was going to be the recommendation by the, recommendation will be that we are going to go with the other airline. Did you not text that to me, Craig?
I did, and I told you that, I told you that the board.
Except one.
I told you.
That was going to be the recommendation.
Okay.
I told you that the board had discussed this, and they'd made a recommendation to us, and that is the way we were leaning. But that was not our final decision, and I didn't tell you that.
I think that's really unfair to.
He should never have sent that mail.
Absolutely, Craig.
Stop.
There were conversations. He had
regard.
conversations with everyone
Okay.
on the board except for one person.
Yeah. Well, regardless, the airport committee had recommendation that is to us. And I realized that tonight there's a lot at stake because Penn Air has done a good job. They are a member of our community. We've all flown on Penn Air, and there's some emotion around the Boston versus Newark, what makes sense. However, Penn Air was not the second choice of the airport committee. So we can sit here tonight and we can pin Penn Air versus the Newark connection or Penn Air versus the Dulles connection. This isn't a us versus Penn Air or the Northern Maine Regional Airport versus Penn Air. Penn Air has served this community well. They have done a great job, and there is no fault in that. My biggest back and forth on this decision, honestly, is Boston versus Newark. It's not Saab versus Jet. I fly on both. I typically get in, and it doesn't bother me. It's Boston versus Newark. And it's not just my business that I'm worried about. It's the other business people that I have talked to in the community and in the region, which has been plentiful, that they feel like a connection to a hub like Newark will enhance their business in the region. And to that, I will speak to the fact that in this room this evening, we have heard a lot about people that are for that Boston connection. And a lot of the business side of it that have spoken to me personally have talked about how that Newark service with Jet and all those connections will help make their businesses in Aroostook County more viable. And the fact of the matter is, those people aren't here tonight because they become scrutinized, and their businesses become scrutinized when they speak publicly about something like this. And these people are going outside our region and they're bringing dollars back. And I'm all about spending my money downtown and spending my money all around Aroostook County. And I think we all should be, and I think we should promote that. I want to fly out of Presque, but that dollar that's going around and around and around in Aroostook County is darn important. The other dollars that are important are the ones from those business people that are going outside this region and bringing dollars back inside. Because God knows we bring our dollars outside. And so this isn't a Pen Air versus United issue. It has been tonight, and that's what it looks like. But the issue to me is making business travel in Aroostook County more viable. And working with the hospitals and PALS and all these other great organizations that get people to good hospitals, find new viable options in and around Newark, or better flight times back to Boston to make that happen for them. So that's where I'm at. Sir?
I just have a kind of a process question, or maybe a couple of questions.
You want to come up? I know you stated your name before. But.
Yeah, Russ Layton. So if the change were to happen, because we've never really had a change here from one hub to another, you know, ever since I've been here anyway. In some fashion, people always ended up in Boston, then they continued on from there, whether there were through stops or not. So if we change service, when would that change take place?
June 30?
The current contract ends in June.
July 1?
July 1st would be the...
So we'll go from, you know, I'm just making up days, but we'll go from going to Boston on Monday to Newark on Tuesday. And do you know how that's going to all be arranged? I mean, I didn't buy anything, God, but we've looked at tickets well past that date. A lot of people have bought tickets past those dates. Do you know what the plan is for those folks?
How long does it take DOT to make that decision?
Scott might be better to answer than that, but I think in some cases it's been a month past the recommendation period that something's decided.
I think USDOT would likely have the final decision on this maybe by the end of February. It depends, and also it depends if for some reason Pen Air would want to, if Pen Air isn't the one chosen here tonight, if Pen Air wanted to exit the market earlier, that would be negotiated with USDOT and with the carrier that will be coming in behind them. SkyWest, for example, is fairly confident that they could get things up and running quite quickly. But as far as how things would work, as far as people who bought tickets, it would be very similar to what happened with Colgan and Pen Air. Other communities have changed air carriers through the EAS process, and that's worked with through USDOT and the airport. I can't tell you exactly how it would be done today. All I know is that it's something that's been done on a regular basis, especially in the Midwest where they've traditionally had more options for EAS carriers. You know, that change happens more than it does certainly in Presque.
Yeah, I understand that, and I've seen that happen, but it's pretty rare that you change carriers, but it's pretty rare you're changing cities. So in my case, I would have had...
Not really.
Just let me give my example. So in my case, I would have bought a ticket on Pen Air to Boston, and then American to Miami, then St. Lucia. And if I had those tickets right now for September, I don't know that United would be obligated to or care about helping me out with that at all. And maybe the Pen Air folks can answer that. I mean, if you have money for my ticket well into the future, what's your obligation to return that money, or what would you do with it?
Yeah. So it's a relationship between the air carriers, not necessarily through the DOT at all, or through the airports. It's strictly through the carriers. We've been here before. We have a very good relationship with United. United will do everything they can, as well as Pen Air, to make sure that those tickets are taken care of properly for those passengers.
All right, thanks. And just two more things.
I'd like to keep the money. No, I'm just
Just two more things I had written down from the conversation that I had mentioned earlier, and one goes to Murray, talking about having a network, and that is one thing I worry about operationally. There's lots of times where I've been on my way from Boston to Presque Isle, and whether something has changed the circumstances. And Pen Air, because they have a 3-airport network in the Northeast, have been able to adapt and overcome a little bit. So they might go Boston, Plattsburgh, Presque Isle if they ended up with a plane in maintenance and down one plane, or I've been Boston, Bar Harbor, Presque Isle. It's taken various forms. I don't know that United Express will be able to do that. I'm guessing they will probably cancel Presque Isle. I don't think they're going to, especially if it's Commute Air coming up here and Air Wisconsin going to Bangor. They're not going to ask Air Wisconsin, nor would they be able to all of a sudden go Bangor, Presque Isle.
And we've all been delayed, and we're all going to get delayed again. You've spent nights in Boston.
Oh yeah, no, I'm just pointing out possibilities.
Mechanical. I mean, we've all had.
Yeah, I'm just pointing out things to consider, as well.
It's gonna be the same.
And one more thing to consider too, and I know it's by no means a done deal, and it's only down to 20 cities, but I spent a lot of time working with Amazon because we fly their freight around, and I know Boston is extremely high up on the list, and it would just be our luck in Aroostook County to stop going to the place that gets 50,000 new highly paying jobs that maybe would want to come visit Northern Maine, to go snowmobiling or the other things we have up here. But those type of things are going to be coming along too. So just things that are food for thought. Thanks.
Thanks. Doug, you want to weigh in?
Got someone else that's
Oh, Ed, sorry.
been waiting for a while.
I didn't see you. I wasn't ignoring you, Ed. I apologize.
I love you guys, you know that. Thank you. Just real quick. For the record, my name and address, I believe, are the same, unless my wife's changed them in the last little bit. So we'll find out. Just, Randy, to address what you were saying, and you've all become very, very eloquent in what your feelings are and what your stances are, and that's appreciated, and your responsibility is noted. One of my concerns, too, is that it be taken into consideration, and this speaks, Michael, to one of your questions, is the amount of money also is more because there's also a frequency of flights that are more. 19 and 12 is quite a bit. So I think it's just important to remember that when there are issues, when you only have the 2 flights a day compared to 3, that's quite a difference, and to be able to get out of here, and even more so on the weekend when there's only 1 flight. And again, when there's going to be issues and the crew can't get out of here in the morning since it's a stand-up overnight, then if they run that half hour over, like Russ says, they can't function again for 10 hours. So that plane isn't going to be able to get touched for 10 hours and before that flight can go again. So I think the fact that you're just going to have 2 flights a day and 1 on the weekends really needs to be considered. That, I think, is more, by going by my experience of the years that I've had, can be a real problem. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Ed.
Scott, does that bid proposal address exactly how they're going to have their flight crews? Does it say that it's going to be that 9 o'clock thing, or is there going to be 2? Or
No.
Is there any way that,
basically.
nothing that binds anyone to do that?
The schedule itself is illustrative in nature, okay? I think it clearly demonstrates a commitment to having a early departure and a late arrival, okay? That may be 11:59, it may be an hour earlier. It's illustrative in nature.
Meaning
Okay.
that
Now-
that would be a situation where they would just have that one flight crew that would be 9 and. Like
The
it-
frequency isn't going to change, okay? Essentially, 12 flights a week is the standard EAS regional jet frequency. It's the frequency that all of the EAS airports that have regional jet service, and over the last year or so, that number has increased substantially, okay, as airlines have rethought how they're going to deploy some of the 50-seaters. And this has worked, okay? They may, if they find that they're having operational issues, they're not going to be any different than Penn Air was. Penn Air, when they came, they had issues. And what did they do? They worked the issues. Okay, that is true of Penn Air. Okay, do we really think United isn't going to work the issue? You know, I mean, especially when for United Mainline, this is one of the first. It's not the first, but one of the first EAS markets that they've bid. Okay. And what's the driving force are the folks who came over from American. Well, they had a substantial amount of success while they were at American. Do you think they don't want that success to occur here? You know, they have bosses that they have to answer to, just like everybody does.
So that isn't necessarily the way that the flight crews will be. There could be a pilot that lives here that's hired by United that's here to take.
The possibilities.
Possibility of anything happening. I mean,
It's merely speculation at this point. Okay, and again, you know. We have to recognize that United will make some changes along the way, just as Penn Air has.
Okay, thanks.
Can I ask Scott a question? Is there a second airplane by any chance? Do they have a backup airplane?
ExpressJet has a fleet of over 146 aircraft. One of the advantages of this bid, okay, is that you're basically pulling from a pool of aircraft that is used all over the eastern, well, I'm going to say east of the Mississippi, okay? One of the disadvantages of say, a silver bid or a Penn Air bid or a boutique bid or even a Sky Value bid is there is a much smaller set of aircraft that you are drawing from. They're all in Boston or in an outbase, and so you can have significant operational problems due to maintenance issues because you don't have a lot of aircraft that you're juggling around. I think that's one of the things that Penn Air has had some challenges with, especially when their Alaska operation, which they do very well during when fishing is going on up there, and I think in the past they've actually drawn one of our spare aircraft up to Alaska. So, in my opinion, in the opinion of the consultant, this actually puts us in probably a better position in that respect.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott.
You're good?
Can I ask one question of Scott, please?
Certainly, sir.
Scott, did United provide you with landing slot times? Did they present you with any timeframes that Newark has tremendous air traffic issues? And if you get outside of their time slots, did they already, when their bid, have they said that you're going to be in the 10 o'clock time slot or a 6 o'clock arrival time zone? Because those have to be pre-selected for a community like that. And they're either giving something else up to get a Newark time slot for Presque, or they're have bought another slot from somebody else. Have they made any kind of announcement or talked to you about that process so there's some kind of guarantee to the community?
Newark is no longer slot limited. That's a change that was made, I believe, just a couple of years ago, Murphy. It was actually a decision made by USDOT under the Obama administration. They felt that United had way too much control in Newark, and the way that they chose to deal with it was to eliminate the slot control. But you're absolutely right. In LaGuardia, Kennedy, Reagan, those are all slot controlled.
May I?
Certainly.
When we flew to Islip, our slot control based off of JFK was airspace slots. It wasn't just landing times, it was slot control for New York airspace. And when we got outside of our slot control, we would be 45, 50 minutes in having to hold either on the ground in Boston or en route because of slot control in the airframe of New York City, not just the airport. So I'm just curious if United has provided, and anybody, even Dulles has some, but not a lot, slot control process also. So I'm just curious, in the bids, and just for the community's sake, has that been discussed at all? They've not indicated any way that you're going to have any timing situations that you're aware of?
No.
Okay. Thank you.
Thanks for your questions, because I didn't.
I can offer a little bit more real world perspective on that, because we go to both of those cities, JFK and Newark, in our system. And no matter which runway we're using in Cincinnati to go to those two locations, it's typically runway 27. Doesn't mean anything to you, but that's probably a 15-minute taxi. The runway very close to our ramp, 36, is not the preferred runway because it makes noise for people. But if we are going to either Newark or JFK, we have to use 36, because as soon as we're given our window of time that we're allowed to go there, we have to be able to get to the runway and make that window. So those slots have not disappeared in any way, shape, or form. They're still there, they're real, and if you can't make them, you get put on a 3-hour, whatever, expect departure clearance delay. So the slot thing is still there, and it's more of an it's a function of airspace on the way there, not so much that you have a place to park when you get there, which can also be a factor.
I've been on that flight too. I'm sure there are a lot of technical issues with the airlines, but and like Scott said, whether it's Pan Air or United or whoever, is going to want to try to make their business as viable as possible and do the best thing they can for the region. But we haven't heard from Doug yet. Keep getting lots of good questions and lots of good information here, so I want to give you a chance to chime in.
I've got a few comments. Thank you for having this be my first meeting here, and it's so interesting. And forgive if I'm a little nervous here. I took my public speaking class in college online. I did get an A in it. So. That's good. I'm in a torn position. I come from a medical background. I own and operate an assisted living facility for the elderly. Also have a stakeholder in 2 nursing homes. The medical side of things, I think, steers towards, in my opinion, the essential part of the essential air service. With that, it's not. I hope we're not going through all this for no point, but DOT could easily look at this and say, look, you're $1.5 million less. That's a decision. But the medical side is a big point to me. The growth of the area, I think everyone has some very good arguments to use the jet through United. But you have an option to go to the same exact place that's 2.5 hours away. Drive to Bangor, you can get to the same exact place. Where Boston, if you don't use the Presque flight, you're driving there the entire 7 hours. So that's a concern for me. Yeah, I guess that's my comments. I obviously want to grow the area. I'm planning to stay here and have a lot of years ahead, hopefully. But I think United may have a better chance in growing the area. But I think in our current need for our existing residents, I tend to just slightly lean towards the Boston flight.
Thanks for your comments. Appreciate it. There's a lot of different perspectives, and we don't get a dress rehearsal on what we are going to say up here every night when we're doing stuff. And we've all had a lot of comments, and both sides. But I do want to just take a moment because Kevin couldn't be here, and he's heard from a lot of people too. So I just, with all due respect from Kevin Freeman, who couldn't be here, Madam Chair, fellow councilors, city officials, and members of the public, I apologize that scheduling and commitments does not allow me to attend tonight's meeting. It is the first council meeting that I've not been able to attend since December of 2016. Well, I'm not going to let him off the hook, though. Let me be brief as possible. This is an important opportunity for Presque and Aroostook County. The matter before us this evening is to review the recommendations by the Airport Advisory Committee, chaired by a former airline employee, in fact, a former pilot. I'd like to extend my appreciation to Charles Niemer and all the committee members for the many tens of hours they've spent individually on the proposals we have this evening. In conjunction with what Airport Manager Scott Wardwell has presented already, these folks have reviewed all the proposals and selected one to be recommended to the Council this evening and then to the Department of Transportation. I've spent many hours on this as well in discussion with civic and business leaders and citizens who live and fly into and out of northern Maine. What's alarming is that a survey of air travelers from this area shows quite clearly that fewer than 10% of the traveling public is flying into or out of Northern Maine Regional Airport. Put another way, 90% of the people are flying from another airport. Admittedly, I am also in that 90%. Twice a year I need to be at a meeting for my business, and that means flying to and from destinations beyond Northeast, Dallas, Orlando, Nashville, New Orleans, Denver, Las Vegas, Reno, Tampa, and all sites we have been required to travel to. When I book those flights from Northern Maine Regional Airport versus Bangor or even Portland, the cost for tickets are prohibitive and out of Presque. In fact, normally in excess of $400. I can easily buy gas for a journey round trip by car to Bangor or Portland, plus a hotel room one night, and still be under the difference in the pricing. The code sharing and opportunity to connect to these destinations will become more competitive with the flight opportunities with the other airports. If we look at the top 5 destinations Aroostook County residents fly to, the number 1 destination is Orlando, number 2, New York area, number 3 is Washington, D.C., number 4 is South Florida. With the opportunity to connect through a single air carrier with nearly 160 nonstop flights daily to these destinations and many others, it clearly should be our number 1 and only proposal worth consideration. In closing, I'd like to endorse the recommendation by the Airport Advisory Committee and support the proposal by United to serve Northern Maine Regional Airport for the next 2 years as the essential air service provider. I look forward to seeing the number of passengers boarded annually increase as a result of this move and not seek the same service by traveling to other airports. My appreciation again to the city officials who have worked on these proposals, in particular Scott Wardwell, airport manager, and the staff and the Airport Advisory Committee. Sincerely, Kevin Freeman, Councilor, City of Presque. And though it be difficult, you know, it's just from hearing from all the different people, you know, and trying to weigh those decisions, and we're all kind of torn to what's the best thing for the region. And sitting here trying to do, you know, always looking at Presque and the dollars, it doesn't always come down to that. But we still have lengthy agenda. Well, not really that bad, but 5 or 6 more items in an executive session. So. Has everyone got a chance to weigh in on, feel like you're good, or you want to make a motion, or you want to ask any other questions of the Airport Advisory Committee? Again, we are not making the decision. We are sending a recommendation to the DOT.
Well, Madam Chairman, I'd maybe make a motion that we close the citizen comment portion of the...
Yeah, it really wasn't a public, it's
No?
not considered a public hearing.
Well, then
not in my agenda, it wasn't.
Okay.
So.
Well, then I would make a recommendation that we send forthwith to the DOT a recommendation that the United Airlines bid be made the official recommendation of this council.
It wasn't a DOT recommendation, it was the airport advisory.
Right, to the DOT, though.
To the DOT.
Yeah,
Yeah, he said it correctly.
Okay.
I have a motion by Craig.
I'll second it.
Second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion carries. Move on to the next item of business, which is the overspent budgets. That sounds fun.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can't always listen to Craig.
Lady right there that was giving us the faces.
They're not all like this. Yeah, they're not all like this, trust me. I have never seen
No rush.
Hey, Rick. Get rid of that white light, why don't you?
Hey!
Man, that is terrible.
What is that?
Sleep.
That shines in my window all the way down the hill. What are we going to do about it? We need a public hearing.
I'll be there.
Okay.
Thanks, Alan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ed. Appreciate your comments.
Thank you.
I know it's a hard thing.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Ed, for coming in. Thank you very much. Yeah.
And thanks for your comments, appreciate it. Council, there's item number 3 is overspent budgets, and Pat did put together a memo that's in there and outlines overall spending in 3 different areas. One was the library for $4,600, the public safety building for $89,000, and debt service for $28,000.
Find this in my packet.
I know,
It's
there's-
all airlines?
Way at the
Oh, I
end.
got it.
Way at the end. So they're unaudited financials, but at this point, we're pretty confident that we have almost $500,000 going back to surplus. So the end of the year, we finished almost $456,000 in the black this year. It's a good year.
Hold that.
Oh.
What'd you do?
Damn it.
Could you say that again, Mark?
Oh, I'm sorry. Overall, we finished, this year was a really good year. For how we finished, we $456,000 in the black this year. A lot of it has to do to Pat's department and the collection of various revenues from varying from excise taxes. But it was a lot of work that was handled through accounts payable and the front counter clerks. We saw excise tax that was above what we projected. So
Well, we should. The economy's growing.
So, in other words, what you're telling us is,
People are spending money.
we budgeted X amount, and we ended up with 400 and some $1,000 more money than we thought?
that's a combination of two things. Underspending in some of the individual budget lines.
And increased revenue.
And increased revenue, correct.
So why are we
Well-
overspending?
Just in those specific departments, so.
I can't find that one at all.
So the library was $4,600. Most of that had to do with primarily wages for part-time help, and we did adjust that during this year's budget to increase that, so we know where it's going. The public safety building, as you are aware, we did have a number of building repairs that were issues this year, and the other one were wages that were for the public safety building instead of the police department. And debt service was $28,000. We underestimated the amount of the debt service.
Is it just a math? So, these overspent budgets, only by charter, we have to treat them specially if it was the other way?
Mhm.
Okay. This is an
Good job, departments.
exceptional,
Good job, yeah,
exceptional
that's awesome.
job. Yes.
What great news.
And I like the $456,000 being returned to surplus.
I'll make a motion that the city authorize the following departmental overspending for 2017. Library, $4,671. Public safety, $89,447. And debt service, $28,624.
Second.
Motion by Emily, second by Randy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Woo, that was quick.
All right. Council.
That was
You
a
did
lot.
you did a good job, Pat.
That was a lot easier than the last one.
Yeah, you think? Shoot.
So
At least your
Tom,
tires aren't slashed when you go out.
so Tom Powers is here from the Industrial Council to maybe say a few words about this item, but long story short, the Acme Monaco project came in $24,000 under budget, and he has a request that's from the Industrial Council that they want to take that money and put it into their account, and there's an option that we take that and put it back into the city's Economic Development Reserve Fund, where it initially came from. So there's two different options that we can essentially do here. One is to return it to where it came from. The other one is to let the Industrial Council use it for the Building Fund Reserve. So those are the two options that we have.
Well, I
This was
recommend we send it to them to let you guys do something with it, because
You're making more stuff happen.
This was a motion made by Kevin and seconded by me. I guess I took off my council hat and put on my industrial council hat, but I really feel that this money will be better served for economic development if it's allowed to be in the mill at the industrial park.
I think we should
Oh,
put it in the
100%.
Presque Development Fund. I'm just kidding.
So I would make the motion
Make Floyd happy.
to authorize the finance director to transfer the unused funds from the Acme Monaco renovation project to the industrial park capital reserve. Is that
Second.
correct? building fund, excuse me.
Second.
Motion by Randy, second by
Craig.
Craig. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Okay.
Appointments to the Presque Utility District?
There are two positions to fill that would expire December 31st,
What do you make
2020.
appointments to the utility?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
It's Rick Netto and Brian Sipe. Brian Sipe would be a new individual, but they both become recommended from the trustees. They did the
They'd both be
interviews.
great. I move we appoint Rick Netto and Brian Sipe to the Presque Utilities District for terms of 3 years length.
Hold on, can they see that light? Was that them that put that up, the utility district?
I think it's on the water tower.
Yeah.
You're
No.
referring to?
Wasn't them?
No,
Okay.
it's one of the cell.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Randy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Who put the light up?
Is that a flashing light?
Yeah.
Oh, it's annoying when you live next door to it.
It's wicked bright.
It is. I noticed.
I don't know why there wasn't a public hearing on that one.
I don't know. When?
It's supposed to be red during the night. It's not turning red.
I
it's
got
like
a
a
can of
strobe
spray
light.
paint for that.
I'm just gonna cut the cable.
I can ask
Part
around.
of the aggregation easement piece there for runway, for aircraft, is that?
No, it's on top of State Street.
Right, but it's for
I think that's
aircraft.
the reason.
Oh.
Yeah, well, no one's hit it yet, and there was no light
one's
there
hit
for
it.
a long time. I mean, that flashes all the way down through all the neighborhoods.
I saw it from Caribou on the way back from Chinese food there the
Let's
other
get
night.
back on
All
track.
right.
Anyway,
Okay,
I'm-
I
Carl Allen,
recommend
zoning.
reappoint Bob Colley and Mike McPherson to the Presque Development Fund for a term of 3 years expiring December 31st, 2020.
Second.
motion by Craig, second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries.
This next one is a reappointment for the zoning board, and Carl Allen would like to do another 4-year term.
Awesome.
Good.
Is the zoning board full right now, or does that have vacancy?
Ooh,
Vacancy.
yes. Yeah.
And the planning board both have vacancy?
Planning board definitely has vacancies too. There's currently 3 vacancies on that board.
3.
3.
Okay, I recommend that we reappoint Carl Allen to the Zoning Board of Appeals for a term of 4 years, expires December 31st, 2021.
Second.
Motion by Craig, second by Mike. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
We should note that we would like to fill those vacancies, if anybody's listening. Because it slows down business when we can't operate and have meetings.
Can I ask how you normally go about that? Do you put like ads in the paper and stuff?
Yep.
Correct, yeah. We do WAGM. I've been trying to fill that now for a year and a half, those
And
vacancies.
personally reach out to people too, if you.
It's one of the most difficult boards to fill. Planning board.
And zoning only meets if there's an issue, right? Or
Correct.
there's-
Yeah.
Well, the Board of Appeals only meets if there's an issue,
Yeah,
yeah.
but usually zoning, there's a request very often for them to meet.
But planning meets regularly, and that's very important.
And we had to cancel the last meeting due to lack of a quorum. That all we need is one person that's out sick or whatnot, and it doesn't occur.
Start affecting development when you start
Yeah.
in that situation.
The other people that put their names in for this seat, we reach out to them.
Yes, we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
That's a good idea.
See, you're already off good start.
Sorry, Council, the last item is the bike main event. I include the flyer for the kickoff party. What they need to do before the event is to have a liquor license. They want to have a vendor come up and serve spirits at the event. It should be a well-attended event, and you're all invited to come. It's going to be February 3rd, right around the corner at the Sargent Community Center.
February 3rd? Oh, my birthday.
We're bringing Maine Beer Company beer up too.
Okay, great. Oh, good.
Maybe I'll make it back.
I move we approve the Incorporated Civic Organization license for Bike Main.
Second.
Motion by Mike, second by Randy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Motion carries.
Madam Madam Chair, I would move to enter into executive session pursuant to 1 NRSA 4056E to discuss negotiations matter.
Second.
Motion by Randy, second by Mike. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Hi, everyone.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Jay.